Here we go.
G'day fans and welcome to another exciting Wednesday night with Rip It Off the Card. Look at that, we've been on the air for milliseconds and Ange is already with us, as is Carol for Ballarat, which is magnificent to see. Daylight savings has finally ended. It is dark outside. We're slowly heading towards the cooler weather, and it is freaking me out because normally it'd be bright sunshine out there, but it's not. Mr. Aaron, how you coping, mate? What's the deal?
Well, I actually like it where it's a bit darker. It feels more like people will be in and watching us, so hopefully it'll be a good show. How are you going?
I totally agree. Why would you be out in the wonderful darkness and the cold and the wet and all the rest of it? Come inside, watch us. There's no Shane Warne Memorial this week, so there's no excuse to be out watching that. And as it is, people are sort of jumping in right now to say hello to us, which is absolutely fantastic. So tonight is a particularly good show. We've got some very, very interesting stuff to cover off. Your day, how's your day been before I move on to something very, very exciting?
It's been an interesting day. Both Channel 7 and Channel 9 contacted me because they were interested in our concept of Land of the Tiny Dicks. But Dicko came in today and he refused to let me take any dick pics to send to Channel 9. So I don't think the project is going to happen. What do you think about that, Dags?
Do you realise people who have no idea what you're talking about are going to be still confused as to no idea what you're talking about? Carol's decided to offend me already. She's called me by that other name, which I don't accept. But yes, the old meow meows are on this weekend, which I call them meow meows because that's the sound they make when they go whizzing past. Meow, meow. So, which is absolutely fantastic. So, yay team, the GP is back in town. Formula One for those people out there who've got no freaking idea what I'm talking about. Now, got an update for you kids. Last week, I mentioned to you how Aaron had sort of given to me a Star Wars jigsaw puzzle, 550 effing pieces of this jigsaw puzzle. We weren't even too sure if it was complete. And I took it home. And aside from counting all the bits, Lynn and myself decided to put it together, right? Now, I've got to give you an update. So it's 1 week later. So how has it turned out so far? We've gotten to this point here, right? Now, I've got to tell you that when the Emperor ordered Order 66 to kill the Jedi, I'm glad he did because Ben Kenobi down here was an absolute pain in the ass to do. Every piece was pink, right, with a bit of glitter, and we could not work out what went where. We ended up having to build the rest of it around him and slowly work out where his face was. He was an absolute arsehole. So when Kenobi comes out next month on TV, we're going to say, mate, you shit me to tears. Now, the other part that causes a massive amount of grief was up here. Now, if you look at the previous picture, right, the logo there isn't there. It's over here, right, which isn't very, very good. But we had problems trying to work out around what was here. And I swear we could not find this piece here at all. We actually thought it was missing, right? And I thought, bloody Aaron has given me a jigsaw puzzle with a piece missing. But as it turned out, only as of like an hour or two ago, we finally found it. And I tell you what, I was ready to chuck this puzzle to the shit house. It was pissing me off. So all these leftover bits, that's all we got left. And I tell you what, it has not been much fun. So thank you, Aaron, for giving me misery and pain. You're supposed to do
I tell you what, Dad, you've done such a good job. If it's complete, you can keep the puzzle.
Look at this. Gavin's got shown me no sympathy whatsoever. I tell you what. I tell you now. Just for those people out there who've never done jigsaw puzzle before, there are a couple of rules and things you need to be aware of. Right? Every piece wants to find its place. Right? But if it looks like it doesn't actually fit, it's okay. You can still put it in there. Right? The piece wants to be there. It doesn't matter if the picture doesn't match up. Just do it. And I tell you what, a good fist on top of it, like I did with Ben Kenobi's head, doesn't hurt. And if that doesn't sort of fix the issue, a pair of scissors around a couple of extra bits, they will definitely go in. So sometimes you've got to do what the piece wants, and the piece wants to just go into the puzzle. So you must satisfy the puzzle. So there you go. So you got it here first, kids. If you want to make a jigsaw puzzle, that's what you need to do. What do you reckon there, Mr.
I think you've got a lot of patience. I think you've got more patience than me. Unless it's a Doctor Who jigsaw puzzle, I'm not going near it. When I was a kid, I had the X-Wing in Space jigsaw puzzle, and I think you're being a whinger because that was 1,000 pieces and it was all black space.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I'm getting a lot of sympathy from Christy. Yeah, poor Dag. They're exactly right. A whole week of just complete stress, and there you go. So fantastic. Oh, look, Dicko's trying to come out with a joke. Oh, sounds puzzling. Yes, very, very cool. Yes, good stuff. Jesus Christ, a couple of comments I'm not going to bring up. Unbelievable. Thomas, hang on. Was it could do a 10,000 piece puzzle in a month of water sky and reflected sky? Yeah, some people just throw on these things, but I'll tell you what, I haven't done jigsaws in a long time, and this one pissed me off. But anyway, speaking of getting all things excited regarding Star Wars, we actually have a Star Wars themed discussion tonight. But before we get to that, we have to do something particularly exciting, and of course, we got to talk about some of this. Let's go for it. All right, Mr. Aaron, where are we off to tonight, old son?
Well, this is interesting because we've got 2 video intros for tonight's news section, haven't we? So I think we'll play the other intro and then we'll talk about what we're going to look at.
Very, very good. And I like what Greg has said. Yes, there's a pathway to many abilities, some consider to be unnatural. Oh, Greg, you are such a cool dude sometimes. Press start. So let's go for it. Here we go. Let's break some copyright rules, shall we? Now, you think it should finish there, but it's not going to.
Well, I want the copyright.
We had to play all of that because poor old Aaron probably spent hours putting that together, and I thought, oh, yeah, very, very good.
I just had to ask you before we move on, when you found that final piece of puzzle for the TIE Fighter strut, did you go, well, hello there?
No, it was more a lot of expletives and swear words, because I swear I was convinced it was missing, right? It was just not there at all. And even though the box, when we got it, was sealed, I mean, someone sticky taped it up, couldn't find it for love of money. And when we eventually put the piece in, we realized it didn't match the pieces around it. It had a slightly dark color to it. But I tell you what, I mean, yeah, a bit of frustration. But anyway, we move on. As people, all the sympathy that's coming for me at the moment from everybody else going, oh, my goodness, poor dear. So, yes. Here we go. Russell's got the odd, you need a new segment, collectibles that depress you. Yeah, that's a good one. What do you got, old son?
Well, we're looking at computer games tonight because although we do news and we look at action figures and sometimes some other weird stuff, a lot of people collect computer games and we never really do computer game news. And there's been a couple of big releases this last week and today. So I thought, do you know what? We're going to have a new segment where the news today is just on computer games. And the first one we're looking at is this little dude here. Do you know who this is, Dags?
Wouldn't have a damn clue. But I'm going to take a guess and say his name's Kirby.
You're right. So I'm not sure if anyone here grew up being on the Nintendo and the DS and Super Nintendo and all those different systems. But one of the, I guess, classic characters that has traveled through all the different systems is a little character called Kirby. And you know how obscure this guy is. I said to my son, what character is Cat Kirby? What is he actually meant to be? And my son's like, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows that. So basically, he's a little pink ball that can basically eat anything. And he's just past 30, so he's been around for a while. There's been a whole lot of Kirby games. If we go back a slide, I think there was a lot of the previous ones. This is, now go back another slide so they're all the different previous games there have been. There was one before that with some older games as well. But Kirby is one of the heritage characters that has been around on Nintendo forever. So he has his old games. He even turns up in Super Smash Brothers and other franchises just because he's such a popular character. Now, last week, Nintendo launched another one of their Kirby games, which is this one. It's Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And it's another sort of multiple stage going around open world Kirby solving puzzles and doing things. And it has shocked Nintendo with how incredibly popular it was. Last year, or the year before, I guess it is now, Nintendo had Animal Crossing that did way, way better sales than they expected. And this year, it's Kirby has been the one that has sold out globally, and they have had to put in orders for a new pressing of it. And all of the Kirby games locally, I think, sold out earlier in the week as well. So if anyone is into Nintendo, of course, it probably won't be collectible because they've sold an absolute ton of them, but it is the big thing at the moment. And on that page, you can see there's some of the other Kirby stuff you can get, which is some of the downloadable stuff for extra things in the game. Now, this game, I don't play a lot of Kirby type stuff. I got my son to give me a review. He said it's one of the most awesome Kirby games ever. Kirby, for people who play it, can eat anything, so he can fit anything in his mouth. And he said this is the first game they've ever had with something called mouthfuls. And so if Kirby eats a car and it's a mouthful, he turns into the car. And if Kirby eats a hang glider, he turns into a hang glider. So they've opened up a whole different, oh, Dags, you don't look too enthused. They've opened up a whole different sort of playability level by doing this to the game. No, not Kirby, not for you, Dags?
I couldn't help but think when you said it can eat anything and will eat anything, I was just thinking of all these fanboys from the Doctor Who fan club, but it kind of reminded me of that. There you go.
I think Colin's got the right idea. Kirby may have eaten your missing jigsaw piece.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Yeah, exactly right. So, bloody jigsaw puzzles are a pain in the ass. So, yes, very.
It was a massive sellout in Japan, and it's been a great hit globally. But we're going to move on because the main reason we're looking at the games tonight is a little game that came out today. So I don't know if anyone may have picked this up. I have, but I haven't been able to have a chance to play it yet because come straight home and do this show. Yes, Dags?
Well, it's very funny, everybody who's watching this right now. Just before we went on air, Aaron said, "Oh my God, this game came out, mate. I'm slobbering at the mouth. I can't wait to get into it." And for that reason, I'm just going to delay it before I push the button and show you what it is. So, he's like, "Oh my God, I'm losing my load over this." And I'm just thinking, whatever, dude.
Well, we have a Star Wars themed night tonight, and we have just seen the release of the latest Star Wars Lego game, and oh my goodness, it is a good one. So I'm not sure if anyone here has played the Lego game. I'm betting most people will have played at least one Lego game at some stage. Now, there have been a few Lego Star Wars games over the years. In fact, there's all the different eras there. So they go back to I think when episode 1 came out, there was one, and then there was the classic movies, and then there was episode 3 that bundled them all together, and then there was one for The Force Awakens, which I didn't really get into. But the new one is basically lock, stock, and barrel, all of the classic movies, all of the different levels, all the graphics has been upgraded, the gameplay has been tweaked, and there's new amazing puzzles and things to do in all of them. It's one of those great games where you can unlock a lot of stuff as you go along. You can see there's the different menu to enter the different levels. You've got the episode 1, A New Hope, and it looks like on the menu there, not episode 1, episode 4, of course, A New Hope, and Empire Strikes Back is locked, and then you can go to the other trilogies. So everything is in the one game.
It's very rare to see The Force Awakens and episode 7 mentioned, because they really sort of avoided that, except for in the title crawl. Otherwise, you never see episode 7 of The Force Awakens. Just an observation, but
they really did avoid that. So it is unusual. I think that's not on the packaging; it's just in the menus, though. But that's pretty cool to see. The Star Wars games I have always found to be very playable, and they work on a lot of levels, because if you're a kid, you love Lego. If you're an adult, you probably love the characters. They're very easy to play, but challenging as well if you want to do all the puzzles. Here are some of the levels. You can see that there's a whole lot of different characters you can play. Just about every character you can play, actually. So you've got Luke there with Yoda on his back, and you've got Lando with a bantha. You can play just about anything, and you can just about every scene you could imagine from any of the 9 movies in the series. You can play that level. Of course, you might have to unlock a few things to get to it. So what's the coolest character there, do you think, Dags? I think it has to be Babu Frick. I don't think you've been able to play him in any other Lego game, so the Vial will now probably have to go out and play that. Unlock all the Legos characters, unlock him as a playable character, and then play the whole 9 movies as Babu Frick. But
hang on.
Yep.
Hang on. Well, is that Babu Frick up here?
It is, yes.
Oh, jeez, I was thinking, which one is he? And I couldn't work it out. And it's only because he's a small picture. I thought that must be it. Anyway, continue on.
No, I had to enlarge it because it was a little small character. But you can play anything from any of the legacy characters and the heritage characters and the sequel characters, right down to Gwonk droids and Jabba the Hutt. So I haven't got to that point. The other thing that I think is pretty interesting, even Jar Jar has his little tongue action going in the Lego game there too. So they've got a bit of a sense of humor. And that's one of the things I've always loved about the Lego game. It's serious enough that if you love Star Wars, you can play through the levels, but it's funny enough that when you watch it, there's all these jokes and in-jokes and hidden little things. Now, there is cutscenes, which means theatrical scenes, I guess, between the levels, and some of those are absolutely amazing. There you've got Luke with the Dianoga, and there's the Death Star with the Death Star port where they have to put the torpedoes. You've got the streets of Coruscant look just like the real thing, but made of Lego. You've even got the Rathtar in the bottom there chasing the older version of Han and Chewie and BB-8 through the I guess it's the warehouse. It's not on the Falcon. It's on the warehouse ship there.
What was the name of the ship?
You're going to tell me, so I don't really need to know, do I?
It's the Eravana. So there you go. I had to try and get a bit of one-upmanship somewhere along the way. So, but yeah, it was on the ship. There was the Eravana.
You didn't even
remember,
know.
you used to have a bigger crew. So.
Yeah. And then you've got Kylo Ren and Rey there. So any level or any character you could play, this game's got it for you. But it doesn't just have running around as a little Lego guy. You've got the flight simulators with Lego too. So again, I was watching some of the scenes for this in reviews, and it is absolutely amazing where you can do just about any of the battles in any of the Star Wars movies and play in any of the ships. So you can play as Jango Fett in the Slave One, or you can play as Luke in the X-Wing, or there's the new X-Wings that are black and orange from the sequel trilogy. So you can do just about anything you want within this Lego game. And here are some of the other amazing things. Now, one of the things I haven't seen in a Lego game, you can see on the left there, there's actually questions and trivia to unlock different Lego levels. And you've got the stormtroopers there interrogating your character. And their question is, who shot first? Now, how do you answer that one?
Well, strictly speaking, you've got to say that Greedo shot first because the latest version of the film is the correct version.
Well, there you go. I'm not sure. I would say Han shot first. That's because...
yeah. And from the fans' perspective, absolutely. But in terms of canonicity, Greedo shot first. So, yeah.
Well, I guess it's one of those things. I'm sure whatever you choose, it will give you a different animated scene from the stormtroopers. But you can see there some of the other cut levels. Where you've got the different videos for different movies, and you've got down the bottom left. Bottom right, the different abilities you can unlock. So this is quite a vast and engrossing game, and I can see I would love to spend hours and hours on it, but probably won't get a chance. But there you go. So it was available, I think, yesterday or today in Australia. And of course, like all things Star Wars, there was a special deluxe edition. Now, if you were getting a deluxe edition and it came with a Lego minifigure Luke, why is this an exclusive one, Dags? What's so great about this Luke? I
actually couldn't give a shit, so you might as well just tell me.
It comes with Lego blue milk. So you can see that in this set, it's the only way you can get a little Lego blue milk brick for your Lego collection. And that's apparently sold out or just about ready to sell out anywhere, which means it's, I think, $79 for the deluxe edition. That figure will be going for $100 on eBay in 3 weeks' time.
Which means it'll probably appear in our show in a segment. A couple of things. He's drinking milk. Yeah, fair enough. Blue milk. I agree with Christy. Yeah, how could Greedo miss if he was shooting so close? Yeah, he's a bit of a useless bounty hunter, isn't he, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, you're right. It's just because with the blue milk, the price will go completely nuts. Obviously, I'm not a fan of Lego, the games, or whatever, but I can acknowledge their massive success and what I have seen, which is extremely limited. Yeah, clearly I could see why it would appeal to both adults and kids. And just listening to you talk, it's like you're doing the promo for the show. Go out and do yourself a favor. Buy the bloody game. Get yourself some shit happening. Don't watch this show. Everybody leave right now. Go out and start playing. I'm playing the Lego because Aaron told me to. So you're a very excited dude.
And play with me online. I don't know if you can, but yeah, I know why Greedo can't shoot straight, because he went to the Stormtrooper School of Shooting Accuracy.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm going to get you to just, while you're getting yourself excited, move your camera a bit to the right. Other way. Thank you, sir. Other way.
Yeah.
No. But, that's cool. Yeah, back. Yeah. You've just moved it back where it was. So, yeah. So anyway, look, it sounds good. It's a very, very groovy, very, very exciting, and yeah, and it's no doubt going to be a massive success. Whether it's Lego, the actual the bricks, or the games. It's like the company can do no wrong. So there you go. I need a Lego Pop. Yes, so that will be happily thrown out the car window on the way back from Aaron's store. So yeah, very, very cool. Nah, it's all good. It's all groovy. Get out there, enjoy it, and love it. What can I say? But one thing you're not going to love, dare I say it, of course, is a bit of this.
Useless Pop of the Week!
Yes. From the quality to the crap. What do you reckon, dude?
Well, this pop comes from the Vial. I guess the Vial is versatile, isn't he? Because he's sending us useless pops now. But this is one I have seen before, and I guess it may have some appeal to some people. But like most of the useless pops, I think the majority of the people, the majority of the time, would scratch their head when they see this one. What did you think of it, Dags?
I'm sort of sick of having to repeat myself saying about how crap it is that they design these things. But let's have a look, kids. Look at that. What the hell's that meant to be?
Well, it's another character who is wearing a Batman outfit. I think they're one of those sort of, I guess it's become a cult. And then when it became popular, they used all the different skins and different superheroes and made a whole lot of them to the point where no one was interested anymore because the fad was over. But that doesn't stop Funko from making a ton of them and pushing them out. So not only can you get the Batman version of Domo, but you can get like all the different superhero versions. Now, just because we've had Batman before playing hot licks on the guitar doesn't mean that they aren't going to have another stab at making another useless Batman character. And I don't know, between the Guitar Hero one and this one, what one do you think is worse?
They're probably equally as bad as each other. I mean, this is just rubbish. I mean, at least the guitar thing, if I remember correctly, at least it looked like Batman. This is just ridiculous. If you took that head off this guy, right, and just held it up and said, "Oh, do you reckon this is a Batman-related thing?" Nobody would put two and two together on that one. It's only because they've put it on the suit. So it's just bullshit. So
it looks a little bit Adventure Time, a little bit Jaws, and you could almost imagine if you rammed your hand down on the top and it was a chomping thing, it could be a cigar cutter as well.
Yeah, and in fact, one of our audience members has just summed it up perfectly. Joe, yep, it's a piece of shit. Totally agree with you, dude. So, but yeah, someone out there who's a Batman fan will say, "Well, we're going to buy it anyway," because that's what happens with these things. And yes, it's complete rubbish. So anyway,
yeah. Joe often posts a lot of stuff online about show bags and research on show bags. I don't know if Pop or Funko have ever done a show bag, but you can just imagine if they did an exclusive show bag, everyone would be after it no matter what was in it, just because it was a rare one only available at the show.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, anyway, that's complete tripe, and yes, I think we're going to move on from that because eventually we'll have a whole collection of these things. This is the pops that rip it off the card rejected. So there you go. Anyway, let's move on to something exciting. We've got some very interesting updates regarding what happened last week. So let's get into it, shall we? So what's going on, Mr. Aaron?
Well, the Soul Greg King has been working tirelessly to bring us top-level A-grade content for this segment. First, we're going to have a look at some of the stuff that he has ordered for us. So these kept coming up on Facebook. They are metallic, high-grade, themed packs of Star Wars playing cards. You can see there that the decks are either light side decks or dark side decks, and you've got like Rey or Han or Vader or the Emperor or Kylo as the different picture cards. They do look quite nice. I don't really know how much a pack of custom cards would go for, but the thing that really got me in was when you ordered them, it was like order two decks, and there's a cross through the $19.50, and you get them for $19.50. So I thought that was quite an interesting little scam where they're doing the whole, it's cheaper if you buy more than one, and then it works out exactly the same price. So we've put an order in for those, and we'll see how long they take to get. I'm probably thinking, so there you go. You can see add to cart, like not $19.90, $19.90. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I think when we get these, hopefully these will pretty much look like what we're ordering, because you'd have to be pretty cheap to send, a game of Go Fish or something if we ordered Star Wars cards. But you never know with these internet entrepreneurs, do you?
Yeah, I mean, actually, the funny thing with the cards, you had the queens, the jacks, and all the rest of it, but the rest of the cards, like your 2, 3, 4, 5, that'd be as boring as batshit, unless there's nothing you can do about those. So you just want the picture cards and forget the rest. But yeah, they did look good actually. So yeah, very very cool. Yeah, play with your pictures. Your star and swing. Exactly right. Yeah, expect the jewelry. Yeah, exactly right. And expecting an old maid. All right, so we're just going to give you a 5-second recap for what's been going on from last week. So for those who don't know or haven't been paying attention to what's been happening, last week, as we discussed, that Aaron had put in, or Greg King had put in an order for a replica Maltese Falcon, which looks absolutely spectacular right there, as you can clearly see. But of course, what he got was in fact the Maltese Dragon, right? And the company was actually saying it is actually a Maltese Dragon. And since then, Aaron has been conversing or communicating with the company regarding about the fact he got completely the wrong item, and the fact that his Hobbiton Village piece was missing as well. It was supposed to be in the box with this, and it didn't turn up at all. So now we're going to move on to the rest of the correspondence. Is that right, Mr. Aaron?
Yes. So I think I'd left it in their hands and was waiting to hear back from them over my complaint. So I think they'd escalated it to someone else. It wasn't just the customer service team. Now I've got someone called Ronnie. Now, the thing that makes me wonder if I've dealt with these people before, because suddenly they're going, "Hi, Chief." And I remember when we did the Clone Trooper helmet, they started calling me Chief as well. So I don't know if that's like meant to be a complimentary thing or just something they do. But this is Ronnie from All Express, and I have been looking at your order. I don't think you need to get this internet investigator involved. Now, we're talking about Greg King, because last week I said, if you don't do something about it, we're going to handball it over to the sole Greg King who investigates scammers online. I'm sure we will make the situation good. We are not scammers and would love to offer you free replacements for all your items. All you have to do is send us postage. All you have to do is send a payment of $9.99 to our PayPal account, and we will rush out replacements for you. For your order. You can also keep the Maltese Dragon as an amazing free gift for you, or give it to a friend or loved one. What do you think, Ronnie? What do you think about that? They're asking me for more money.
It's absolute bullshit. And the fact they've said, you can keep the free dragon, it wasn't free. You paid for it. Unbelievable. It's just like, I mean, you can see this is where this is heading. There's a lot of comments coming up as well. Yeah, Greg's gone with the Chief thing. Yes. Jeff said, well, there is more coming, just more promotion for the soul. Okay, so they've responded back saying, that's okay, send more money and they'll fix the issue, right? And bearing in mind, they screwed up in the first place because you didn't get the Maltese Falcon that you're supposed to get, and you didn't get your Hobbiton thing. So what do you reckon Aaron said in return? He said this.
Dear Ronnie, so you were saying if I send you $9.99 for postage, you will send replacements for my Maltese Falcon prop replica and the Hobbit home, which I didn't receive. Postage was free the first time. Shouldn't you just send me these items I ordered and paid for free? I have the sole Greg King waiting in the sidelines to look into your internet activity if I feel I'm being scammed. All the best, Aaron.
Yes, I agree, Thomas. Cool. Now, how are they going to respond to this? That's the question, right? You would think they'd say, "Yep, we've screwed up big time. We're going to send you everything: the Maltese Falcon, the Hobbit home, for nothing." Right? That's what you'd think they're going to say. So, what do you reckon they said, kids?
Hi, Chief. No, we are not scammers, and we don't need the sole Greg King on any lines. Now, I didn't realize what they were saying until I read back and I said he was waiting on the sidelines, and they've I don't know if they've known what that meant, and they've said we don't need him waiting on any lines. Postage is in free, but worked into the cost of items, so not really all that free. We don't try and scam you. If you send this payment, we will rush the items to you and you will get them and cherish them. Imagine the Maltese Falcon sitting on your shelf, impressing all your friends that see it. Can you imagine it? Let us know if this offer is acceptable. Ronnie. So he's even trying to sell me in Spruik as we go on. So I thought that was brilliant. Yes, that is brilliant. So,
it's a classic, isn't it? As like, where is this going with these guys, right? As like, send the money and we'll send you everything that you should have gotten in the first place. It's like, what are you guys? Like the Maltese Falcon sitting on your shelf. It's like, well, if you had sent the damn thing in the first place, it wouldn't have been a problem. So absolutely unbelievable. But I think, Mr. Aaron, I think it's safe to say This is Ronnie Johns. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Aaron wasn't taken in by this at all.
I was. Dear Ronnie, against my better judgment, I think I will send you the extra money to get the items. I sat back and imagined my friends seeing the Maltese Falcon on my shelf and coveting it. I will sit it next to my free Maltese dragon, and they will be crippled with jealousy and probably all want to order one for themselves. If you don't rush them to me, I will be handing the proceedings over to the Soul Gred King. All the best, Aaron. Now, I sent the extra money to see what will happen, maybe stupidly, but I just thought the audacity they had to try and sell me more, saying, you know, they sent me the dragon for free. And like, if I get these other amazing things, like all my friends will envy me. I just thought, oh, I've got to see how this goes.
And you are right, Joe. It's like Aaron's fault that he didn't get what he paid for. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you're laughing. And of course, these guys, of course, want you to give them the 5-star rating.
Well, this is the thing. After I put the order through, which is basically another another $10 US, by the way, not Australian, you get to do this. No, it comes up about their 5-star rating, but nowhere on their site or nowhere is there that I could find that you could leave a review for them. So this is one of those things that they have obviously made and put up themselves, which again, I think is genius for a company that'll only be around for 6 weeks and then disappear.
Absolutely. So in the end, are you trying to say that's got the old seal of disapproval, eh?
It has, but I didn't put the seal here for this because that would have been the end of the episode. But I got a message from one of our other viewers that can't watch live. Dear Aaron, can you ask Greg to update his garage and post a picture in the next episode? My kids' favorite thing to do is to see if they can spot every new item in the garage sale, like Where's Wally? Also, they love Greg King's pet seal. Thanks, Alan Cole. So it's really nice to know that we do get people go through those pictures and look at them afterwards. And yes, if you ever want to go up to Bendigo and see Greg King's seal live, if you contact him, I'm sure he could arrange a time.
Yeah, exactly right. And just for you, Alan, there's the picture. So yes, very, very groovy.
So
it's amazing, isn't it? So where's the Maltese dragon at the moment? Is it ended up in the store yet for display?
I've left it behind the shelf just in case. I don't know. I haven't put it out yet. The Maltese dragon is hidden in that photo, and so are the 3 new plush toys. So every week we update it and put new things in. So hopefully, Alan, your kids will be able to have fun finding them.
I love it when you say it's hidden in the photo. You don't have access to Photoshop or anything. It's just like, it's just been slapped in there, kids. So it should be pretty easy to find.
I'm quite proud of this one. Greg actually edited the background out on this, so it's a bit harder to find because it blends in more.
Yeah, exactly right. Very, very good. Joe's right. How do the kids react to the Vol file? I think they switch off after that.
I think
and that's right. Yes, that's the reason why they don't watch live. Yeah. Sorry, what were we going to say?
I think he said the kids want to borrow some of the Vile storybooks because they look interesting.
Unbelievable. So we'll have to see how what transpires with the rest of the correspondence regarding that. But you're thinking you can make life easy for yourself by saying, hey, a dude has ordered this product. Well, send him the product. And that's the end of the story. And you get your 5-star rating. The world is good. But when you deliberately send the wrong product and then try and pretend it's the customer who's screwing the pooch, there is definitely something fundamentally wrong with that. And idiot Aaron has send them more money. It's like unbelievable. We should actually have a specialized segment on YouTube by itself saying it's like Greg King's experiences or something, because I reckon that a lot of people will be very, very curious to say, yes, this happened to me with exactly the same company. So yes, it will. This time it'll be a unicorn. Totally agree. If he does get another metal chain, though, we would be pretty impressed. Sorry, you're going to say something?
The Maltese unicorn is the rarest one of them all.
He's what you call a horny little devil. Speaking of things that are unbelievably horny, it's time for this. The Lord Vile's Vile File. Now, after last week's sagas and episode, we did actually get some feedback, some good, some not so good. We've decided to, how would you describe it, Mr. Aaron?
Well, I haven't sidestepped the issue. I got something through the Vile's mailbag asking a totally different question of the Vile than we've had before. So I threw it over to him to come up with all the answers. So we got this message from Andrea. Dear Lord Vile, I love the Vile File. I have a genuine question. You have a creature collection. Do you like other B movies? Could you do a Vile's top 10 vilest B movie monsters from Andrea? So,
is the spelling of her name correct with all the extra E's?
Well, I cut and pasted it, so I think it is.
Oh, okay. And this is a real message, yeah?
Yes, yeah. The message was about 2 paragraphs longer. I've just cut it down to the bit asking the question that we're getting back to.
Very good. Thomas has asked, and I agree, what are you going to price the Maltese Dragon at, dude?
Well, it isn't an expensive item. It's more of a priceless item. So, I don't know, probably $9.95 or something like that.
Yeah. Remember, fans out there who didn't know this, when Aaron got the headpiece of the staff of Ra for like $20, $30 or whatever, it sold it for $100 in the store. So I was there at the time when it went. So there you go. Christy, you won't need the 000 or the buckets. We're definitely toning things down a little bit on this one. So, so our intention is not to keep violating things to the point of like absurdity. We are sort of going to be a little bit more respectful in the coming episodes until we can find a reason to just go the other way. Yeah. Love it. Babu freaking cool. Fantastic. What, you actually sad by that?
I would actually point out that I don't think the Vile has picked a single one of the topics this whole year because we get so much interesting feedback and people sending us stuff. And I think the thing is, the stuff that they send is so good, the Vile just can't leave it be.
Yeah, well, there's that too. Remember, and we certainly, as from last week, even though there was a couple of criticisms that we received, we didn't produce the stuff. It was actually already pre-produced for us. We just happened to be discussing it and pointing things out, and other people were seeing the same things we were. So don't blame us, kids. But anyway, we're going to move on from that. So it's all right. Just forget about it. We're just going to move on from that. Now we're talking about the Vile's classic monsters. So after you, Mr. Aaron.
So this is the Vile's Guide to B-Movie Monsters. And I said to the Vile, could you pick your 10 favorite B-movie monsters and send us some pictures so we can discuss them? And Dags and I guess, will either say we think they're pretty vile or we don't know what you're talking about. They're not as vile as they should be.
Who is it? The Vile has asked, is she an android like in Star Trek? Who are you referring to? Don't know. Not
probably Andrea, is it maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. No, I'm not entirely sure. So there you go. Gavin, what's best, the items? Oh, yeah, there's definitely no doubt that when we show the stuff, it's what the audience sees as well as ourselves that make it all the more amusing. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about this. So the Vile's Guide to B-Movie Monsters, counting down for number 10. Now, people out there can take some guesses as to what they think their top 10 will be. Number 1 is going to be an absolute no-brainer. But let's kick it off.
So this is an interesting one. Number 10 is the Monolith Monsters. Now, the Monolith Monsters is basically the monsters are giant monoliths of stone that just can't be stopped. They kind of start in the desert and grow and grow and grow until they crush people, towns, cars, and wreak havoc. They're not too hard to outrun, though. Have you seen the Monolith Monsters?
No, I haven't, but I've got it. I mean, I think all the films that we're going to be referencing, but I've never actually watched. There's a few I'm saving for a rainy day, and even when it rains, I still don't watch them. But no, I haven't. But
it's not too bad a movie. But for the monsters, I don't think they're really amazing monsters. They're more like rock formations that grow really fast. So not too scary. I don't know if they're really vile enough.
Well, that's right. It is number 10. So let's see if there's something more violent than that. Oh, here we go. Cop this one.
So this is another cool movie. The brain from the planet Eros or Arouse.
I always thought it was a Roos myself, but I don't think they actually mentioned it by name, but I can't remember.
I always thought they were the arousal brains.
Anyway.
So have you seen this movie? This movie is, of course, like a lot of the B-grade movies, giant brains that come around outside people's heads, are pretty evil. This one has the whole brain stem with it as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was actually quite a good one because it's sort of taken over the dude and it's a bit of a nasty pasty and all the rest of it. But I haven't seen some of these for a very, very long time. But the brain from Planet Arus was actually a really good film, if I recall. So and of course, I think only he gets to see it. So the poor bastard's having a bit of a hard day at the office with this one. So
has there ever been a movie with floating brains that weren't evil and weren't trying to take everyone over?
That's a very good point. And Rusky Babies apparently, hang on, watched it last night. Oh, how good's that? So well done. Oh, Gavin, that's a no-brainer. But it is a brainer because you can see it right there. So there you go. Very, very cool. William, you're number 9. I own it on DVD, as do I. So there you go, sir. Very, very cool.
I think William will own all of these ones. Number 8 is, of course, It Came from Outer Space. Vile is sending us his one-eyed monster. So this is another one of those creeping eyes, monsters with a giant eye. A lot of the posters for these are interesting because they have a really realistic eye, and then you get to the actual show and it looks like something more as a reject from the Outer Limits. Do you think this is a vile monster?
Oh, yeah, it's a bit of a ripper. I think, if I recall, I'm thinking this. I think it's It, the Terror from Beyond Space. Was one of these was 3D at the time, and they had very, very similar names. Of course, anything with the name It was obviously a bit of a bad dude. Nothing was ever good with an It. It Came from Outer Space. I mean, what a great title. So, yeah. So you're right. As soon as you got the eyes involved, that's it. And in fact, I think there was even a movie called The Beast with 1,000 Eyes or 1,000,000 Eyes or whatever. So what can I say, mate? The eyes have it. Very, very cool.
Very
Thomas has said, glad that it's in black and white. Actually, well, the black and white actually sort of adds to it, which is particularly groovy. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Number 7 is that horrific piece of jelly, The Blob. Now, The Blob is one of those movies that when they made it, they probably didn't think it was going to be as good as it turned out, I would say, because the concept is quite interesting, and because it doesn't have to have a monster that, looks like a creature from outer space. It's just a gelatinous blob. They managed to nail it, and it's a really creepy concept too. It was remade in the 90s by Toby Hooper, who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And if you want to watch like a more intense version of The Blob, that's a great movie as well. Did you like The Blob?
Oh, yeah, I see. I've discussed this before in other shows. I mean, I saw this when I was a little kid and it gave me nightmares. I was afraid to go to bed and have my arm hanging over the side of the bed. The Blob was outstandingly good. And you'll know, for those who haven't picked up on it before, you see Stephen McQueen. There's obviously Steve McQueen, but he was a nobody at that point. So his name was under Steve. Future posters, they changed it to Steve. But I love The Blob, especially at the very, very start of the film, because you've got the old guy who actually finds the blob and it's infinitesimal. Like it's really, really young, and it crawls up his arm and he can't get it off. And it just reminds you of the time, when it's like when you find something sticky on a surface and you touch it and you go, I can't get it off, and all this sort of thing. Exactly the same principle. And The Blob was actually a very, very scary show. When they did the remake in the 80s, as you said, it was a lot more intense, a lot more realistic too, and a lot more gruesome. But I thought it's one of the rare occasions where a remake, actually, in my opinion, even though it was very 1980s, was actually pretty damn good. So, but yeah, huge fan of The Blob. So I'm actually surprised it's number 5 and not further up the food chain. But
so we have a vile consumer warning: beware of sticky surfaces.
Yes, exactly right. Dessert is served, and in the cinema, for those who know the movie, The Blob's so large it takes over the projectionist and it comes through the cinema. The holes where the film was screened, and of course the audience sees it and runs out of the cinema, the Colonial Cinema. And I think they still have it. The cinema still exists in America, and I think every year or every 2 years, whatever, they do a recreation of people running out of the cinema, Blobfest or something. It's very, very cool, but probably I don't know exactly where it is.
For the 100th anniversary, they should pump like 200 litres of jelly through the projection room window and see how the audience react.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's fantastic, but not to be outdone by particularly groovy movies. This one's absolutely a fantastic monster. It's this guy from War of the Worlds.
So yes, this is number 6. It's one of the War of the World aliens. Now, where are the War of the World aliens from?
Mars, dude.
So this is a Martian, I guess, and they have the Vile actually said this reminds him of the TV set monster because it's got the 3 different color eyes like they have colors on TV. I think that's very interesting because the Martian technology is based on 3 legs, tripods, and they've got the 3 eyes as well. So that was quite good. And it's interesting because it's 3 eyes, but it almost looks like a face because it's got a red eye, a green eye, and the red eye looks like lips almost.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a couple of questions here. Talk about The Blob still. Gavin said if it was made in Australia, they'd use aeroplane jelly. Christy said what colour jelly would they use? It would be red. It is actually a colour film, so it's coloured red. Rusky Babes is right. The title song was by Burt Bacharach, and it's actually an upbeat, happy song too. It sleeps, it creeps, it leaps. It's that completely does not connect with the story of the film. And cop this one. The Vile is enjoying his own segment so much, he's decided to chuck in a number 11, Creature from the Haunted Sea. Man, so there you go. I was like, he's chucking in extra ones, which we don't even have pictures for. So the Vile is really getting excited by this. So absolutely
he's so vile,
fantastic.
he can't be stopped.
Exactly right. So with the Martian thing, I mean, what made this work is the fact that the machines that turn up, they're obviously large and they're destructive and they're destroying everything, but the Martians themselves are actually small, diminutive, really, really weak characters. And regardless of which version of War of the Worlds you watch, clearly the Martians weren't aware of COVID testing. Otherwise, they would have realized they've got to wear masks and gloves and PPE and all that other rubbish. And of course, they get destroyed by all the bacteria. But yeah, when this sequence appeared, hang on, whoop. So when this sequence appeared, and of course, the woman's like chucking the things, and this dude's hand touches her shoulder, and the big reveal of the three eyes. It's it was a very freaky and exciting moment. You go for it.
So you were saying small, diminutive, weak. So what you're saying is the tripods were all driven around by Dicko.
Oh, freaking good on you. No one knows who you're talking about, so that joke is just going to fall a bit flat. But yes, very, very cool. Good stuff. Here were the aliens compensating for something. Yeah, exactly right. Well, if the ships had been painted red, you can interpret that any way you like. But yes, the War of the Worlds aliens from Mars. Yes, and you can argue that if humans ever get to Mars, are they eventually going to look like that? You hope not. So yes, very.
Well, what will happen? We'll take COVID to Mars and get
Good stuff. William says, I own it on DVD. You might as well save your breath, William. I own them all on DVD as well. So yes, exactly right. Very, very cool. But it's good to see you committed. What can I say? Oh, check it out.
Well, this is getting to the point where it is one of my favourite monsters from B grade. And this almost isn't B grade because there's a bit of money thrown at this one. This Island Earth is a classic, and that is the Metaluna mutant from this Island Earth, who wasn't really a bad guy. He was just misunderstood.
Yeah, exactly right. And I agree with Gavin. I do need a whip sound effect when you start cracking those Dicko jokes. Yeah, exactly right. Now, Rusky Babes is whipping out the fun factoids. Look at that. War of the World's Martian fighting machine. Look at that. How very, very groovy. He was sitting there typing this out as fast as he possibly could. And it's good to see that he's back on board as opposed to having to talk through Christy, which is yeah, exactly right. Christy just said it. He could finally write his own messages. So, yes, the old mutant. Because I don't know why I didn't say mutant, but the old mutant from Metaluna is particularly groovy. And what I do like about it is he really, really did look like a big ass alien character, even though as aliens often did in the 50s sci-fi movies, always went for the women, not interested in the dudes. They just wanted to go for the ladies. So yes, and external brains again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
I was going to say obviously reused the brain monster and just slapped a different face on him.
Yeah, exactly right. That's all they need to do. This is number 5, isn't it? So this is very, very cool. Joe says these films look great. That's because they are great. I had a good discussion about sci-fi movies from the 50s in a show that I did about 3 months ago, which is particularly groovy. All right, we move on. Number 4. Oh, check it out.
The Giant Claw at number 4. It kind of rhymes, but there is more. It's got like... It's one of those things. It's the Giant Claw, but boy, it's got an ugly head on it, hasn't it? I like how the movie poster doesn't have the head of the thing. It's just got the 2 giant claws on it as well. But now we're getting to some real vile monsters, aren't we? That's a great monster. And I think I didn't have the photos of it, but one of our other viewers or one of our friends has made a kit-bashed model of that, haven't they, Dags?
Yeah, I'd have to dig up the pictures of that, but yes, one of our a guy that I caught up with who makes model kits made a perfect replica of the Giant Claw. But yeah, I mean, it's so bad it's good. That's the scenario with this. It looks terrible, it sounds terrible, but in the show, it stands on top of buildings and smashes things up. And the funny thing about these sort of movies is when they film them, of course, they did all the special effects afterwards. So you get all the characters, the actors reacting to this thing outside a window they can't see, like in an airplane or whatever. And they're like, oh my God, it's raining, it's tearing. And of course, when they see it in the cinema at the premiere, they're sitting there going, that looks shit. So I got to say, the Giant Claw wasn't one of the best ones.
Well, there was some sad news last week that Ernie Carroll died, but that's probably what Ozzy Ostrich looks like now.
Well, that's what Rusky Babes has said. If they had to use Ozzy Ostrich puppet, it probably would have been more convincing. And because unfortunately, it might have been flying around, but its lack of animatronics in the head did not make it all that convincing. And you're right. It's the craw, not the craw, the craw. So yes, very, very cool. Now this one going to number 3. Now I saw this. I go, well, I did not see this one coming. We're going really left field on this one. It's this way. There you go.
I married a monster from outer space. And the monster in this is quite a good monster. It probably is one of the more forgotten ones because I don't think it's as. I wonder if William has this in his DVD collection, but it isn't probably as viewed as many times as some of the other ones. I don't remember the last time I saw this movie, but it's got to be about 30 years ago. Probably it doesn't turn up on TV that much. What do you think of this monster?
I've only ever seen it once, and that was at the Astor Cinema of all things. I mean, the title of it is yeah. So ultimately, the woman's husband is an alien or some description, and I don't remember it very, very well at all. But I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who go, "I married a monster from outer space," and they're actually talking about their actual partners. So there you go. That explains everything. So I knew there was something shifty about him/her. So yes, I thought I'd just check.
I got this photo through, and I looked online to see if I could find any better photos, and there really weren't. There aren't a lot of photos of this monster. It kind of does look ahead of its time. It could almost be The Thing or something like that, couldn't it? With all the tentacles coming out of their head.
Yeah, exactly right. Just released last year on Blu-ray. Oh, okay. Very, very cool. I mean, it's very funny when a lot of the films get released because they're for so old. There are some that the transfers are really, really good quality because they can get the original film negatives. But there are a lot of the B-grade ones from the 50s that you just cannot get good quality copies of them at all. They just don't exist, right? Because they've just been lost in time. So you kind of have to sort of squint your eyes a little bit when you're watching some of these shows. But anyway, very, very cool. Now, number 2. And this is another one I did not see coming. And I thought, oh, okay, this is particularly groovy. And so nobody out there, I think, if we said to people, what do you reckon the Vials number 2 would be? You wouldn't guess it. But I certainly wouldn't if it's the Invisible Man.
I know. I guess when you think of monsters, maybe that one isn't as vile as some of the like body horror type things that you might expect. But I guess the Invisible Man is a monster. It's one of Universal's monsters. Probably not up there in the pantheons as high as Dracula and the Mummy and the other sort of Frankenstein type level. But it is a classic monster. It was based on a movie book by H.G. Wells, and there's been multiple versions of the Invisible Man, right down to the one with Chevy Chase, which is a sort of comedy version. What did you think of the Invisible Man? Again, I've seen it, but I haven't seen the original version for a long time.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, decades. And I've got, like I say, William, I've got it on DVD as well. So there you go. But I haven't watched it for a long time.
It's one of those movies that would have been amazing at the time because when he took the bandages off and there was nothing there, that was innovative cinema that no one would have ever seen before. And now it's something we can do with a piece of green material and anyone can do on their computer. So it kind of takes away from the wow factor of the effect. But basically the Vial is saying that something that you can't see is viler than the other ones that you can see.
I love this from Jeff Rowe. The Invisible Man did not see that coming yet. Very, very cool. And yeah, you're right, Gavin. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That was a good one for the Invisible Man, and that was absolutely fantastic. The Invisible Man is the perfect spy. The problem is he's got to walk around naked because that's the only issue. And there's a couple of things just regarding the previous one. What is it? Married a Monster from Outer Space. Rusky Baby is a fun factoid. We had to bring up a Doctor Who reference, Terror of the Zygon. So there you go. So what's his name? Greg will be very, very happy with that. It's very funny. In the latest version of The Invisible Man, the latest making of it, there's actually a lot of stuff where there's no visual effects at all. Well, it's all suggestive. So they'll show the person, show this empty space, and your brain just assumes that the character is there. It's very, very clever. Now, later on, you get to see some visual effects.
And that's also called cheap-ass filmmaking.
But it works. Because, the lady's like freaking out, looks at the doorway, and they just show an empty doorway. And you're thinking, is he there or not there? And of course, realistically, he couldn't be there because otherwise he'd be breathing and the door shutting and whatever. But it's very, very clever.
My favorite version of the Invisible Man is Gary Busey in Amazon Women on the Moon, where you have the man who thought he was the Invisible Man. So he just strips off naked and runs around and everyone pretends he's invisible. If you haven't seen that, it's worth watching.
If there was an Invisible Woman version, I would definitely watch that. Now, Joe's mentioned about Hollow Man. Hollow Man was fantastic from a visual effects perspective. That's when they started using digital effects for the Invisible Man. And if for those who've never seen it, and I know we're deviating a little bit. When you inject the serum to make a person visible to invisible, they don't just hit a switch and they disappear. They slowly become invisible, which means you get to see all the internal organs, the body parts, the skeleton, all that. ingenious. It's absolutely ingenious how they've done it. You see all the muscle tissue, and eventually the person disappears. And it's like it's something you've never seen before. It's worth it just for that. The visual effects on that are absolutely outstanding.
Particularly good scene in that with the semi-invisible gorilla.
Well, they start on the gorilla, so that's the first thing you do see become invisible, and then of course Kevin Bacon, he becomes invisible, and then of course when they reverse it and become visible, it's the body parts. It's spectacular. You're thinking, shit, this is really gruesome, but it's not. It's actually just showing the disappearing phase coming into play, which is very, very cool. Yes, Vaughn, you would never know. Can we hang on? Can we get through an episode? I'd love to, without a reference, without Dr. Freaking. I agree with you, Daniel. I can't. Moneybag Solomon. I can't help it. Bloody. It's not even Aaron this time who brought it up. It was bloody Rusky Babe. So.
Well, I didn't get this. I didn't bring it up.
Yeah, well, that's true too. But I'm going to blame you anyway. Hang on. Guilty by association. There you
go. There is a fun fact that Russell didn't bring up. The alien tripod from War of the Worlds was also used as Eldred's ship in Hand of Fear.
Yeah, hang on. I'm gonna have to just hang on. It's just gonna kick Aaron off now. He's just starting to piss me off. All right, so there you go. All right, hang on. Now he really has disappeared. Look at that. So that's coming up later. Actually, that fits beautifully over you. So there, Dr. Aaron, is exactly right. Very good. All right, so number one, the Vile Files Monsters. If you haven't picked it, mate, go home now, pack up, go and watch like the Shane Warne Memorial in the reruns of that. It's got to be obviously the Gill Man from good old Creature from the Black Lagoon, a no-brainer. What do you reckon?
Well, we pitched the land of the, I won't say it, last week to Channel 9, but what I think we should be pitching is actually a remake of The Odd Couple, where the Vile and the Gill Man, live together and have to work around each other's different foibles and idiosyncrasies. So you kind of have the Vile creature from the Black Lagoon / The Odd Couple. He could be Felix, and the Gill Man could be Oscar. Creature from the Black Lagoon is one of my favourite B movies as well. I would say it's famous enough that maybe it transcends being a B movie to a classic movie. Creature from the Black Lagoon, they made 2 sequels. Each one was not as successful as the first one, and they have been trying to do a reboot, which was actually foiled by The Mummy not doing well with Tom Cruise, because Creature from the Black Lagoon was one that was slated to come up, and they were going to have, I think it was Scarlett Johansson was going to play the female lead in it, and that would have been a fantastic update to see. I do think you couldn't have got it as good as the original, because they'd have changed the creature or made it CG or something. There is a movie, I don't know if you've seen Suburban Commando. I don't know what the Vile thinks of that, which has Hulk Hogan in, which has a very sort of updated creature in from the 80s as well. So there are a lot of spin-offs, rip-offs. The creature became Uncle Gil in the Munsters, and the original creature costume would turn up in that from time to time too. So it's got a bit of horror heritage.
Talking about the Hulk Hogan thing, that'd be the Viles number 12. Once again, the Gill Man, for whatever reason, was after the girl. No explanation as to why, but it was just a natural thing. You say he was chasing the chicks as they did it back in the 50s. I'm glad they did not do a remake. I mean, at the time when the film was made, it was a bit of a unique thing having monsters doing their thing. Now you've seen them 1,000 times. It'd just be like, been there, done that. And it's very funny, right? William Mercedes owns them all, and I do too. But I, to be fair, have never seen a Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D, and it was released in 3D. So a few people have watched this show have done that.
That would be a cool way to see it. The other thing that's interesting with the creature, there nearly was another attempt at doing it about 20 years ago when the original Mummy came out with Brendan Fraser. It did too well, because his character was going to fight various Universal monsters, and the second one he was going to be coming up against was the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and it was going to be basically him going up the Amazon on another adventure. And the studio, as soon as the Mummy became a massive hit, the studio put the brakes on it and said, nah, we're doing the Mummy too. And I actually think it would have been a better franchise if they had done a different monster in each one.
Very, very good call. The Gill Man, hook it up with the lady. Imagine the offspring, like it says, our offspring. And, of course, that is where the mutant from Metaluna comes from. So what are you trying to tell me about all these particular movies that the Vile has picked there, Mr. Aaron?
Well, all of them have been absolutely certified and genuinely violated by the man himself.
Indeedy, doody, doody. They have indeed. Absolutely fantastic. So classic movies, you can't knock them. So get a chance to check them out if you haven't done so already. Very, very cool. All right, it's time for us to move on. Otherwise, we're way behind time. Now we're getting into the main topic of the thing, which is, of course, to do with Star Wars. But before we get to that, we've got this.
Ooh, baby, do you know that's what...
So what are we talking about tonight, Mr. Aaron?
Well, I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot more items found at Greg King's garage sale than there are go for tens of thousands of dollars tonight, because we're looking at episode 1 memorabilia.
So Ange has put in 50 cents. And you know what, Ange? That's probably not far from the truth for some of these. So, yes, the old Phantom Menace released 23 years ago. It's very, very exciting. And, yes, there you go. Put in some big numbers, kids. What do we got? What are we doing tonight, Mr. Aaron?
Well, here we've got one of those, well, it's a toy, but it's like a replica gun from episode 1. They did a few different replica guns from the time. This one's still carded. A lot of this stuff is still carded. I actually believe more of this went into collections and stayed mint on card than was loose and played with, which paradoxically means if you open stuff, it goes for more than if you have it carded and mint.
Very, very good. Now, just imagine a prop store auction where they sell posters for tens of thousands of dollars. I'm willing to bet that we're not going to get those prices here, even collectively. So there you go. All right, Andrew, we're going to go with 50 cents. I reckon that's not a bad start. Moneybag Sullivan's at $10. Chrissy's at 75 cents. Remember, there were 3 bids, so there was obviously a bit of demand on this. Gavin has said $74. Oh, that's optimistic. Collins at 5. Violating the old Phantom Menace gun is the Violet 66. You've got to do the old 66. Absolutely love it. Mick has said 25. Rusky Babes has said 20. It's still on the card. It's still mint and box. Absolutely fantastic after 23 years. What do you reckon? Thomas has gone for 125. I reckon that's a bit optimistic. Williams a bit 50. Grant has said 100. What do you reckon as well? I've never even seen this before, actually, to be frankly honest with you. And I'll tell you a story later on about when I got to see all the Phantom Menace toys before they even got released to the public. Carol's $450. Holy guacamole. Greg is $2 each at the garage sale. You never know, Greg. You might be pretty close to the truth on that one. So what do you reckon? Star Wars Episode 1. No one ever calls it Phantom Menace. It's always Episode 1, which is a very interesting discussion point in itself. Battle Droid Rifle. Very cool. 3 bids. There's obviously a bit of interest in this. How much do you reckon it went for? It went for a whopping $12.50. Oh, I promise, if you had to put in a dot in between your 2 and your 5, you would have got it, son.
So what, Colin had $5. Did anyone get closer than that?
Moneybags is there. He's at 12 and at $2.50, dude, and it could be all yours.
So yeah, that's I think that's the closest one then. Yeah.
Nothing you want to say about it?
No.
Cool. All right, Phantom Menace. All right, now we're on a roll, kids. Let's go for it.
So the Phantom Menace probably is the most commercialized movie for food premium tie-ins, and this is one of those tie-ins. So when you went to KFC or Pizza Hut or a whole host of other places, you could get like toys in Happy Meals, and pretty much you ended up looking like me because you'd eat so much junk food to try and get all these different toys from episode 1. This is one of those toys. It's got like Anakin, the pod racer, inside a little cube. Surely this would be rare. Surely this is going to go for a mint. Surely anyone who has these can use them as their retirement fund.
It's very funny. I always thought the idea of Anakin and the helmet was a stupid idea for merchandising because it just looks stupid. But I remember when these came out, I thought they were actually very, very clever. And I think Rusky Babes, it's a good point. There are some items that are selling from when they were originally available, which is quite interesting. So so things have actually devaluated over time, which is kind of scary. That's not something you don't sort of see happen very often. All right, Andrew said $2.50. Gavin's at 15. Carol, got nothing there, Carol. So you've just given us a blank screen. Grant is at $7 with a meal. I like that one. What kind of meal did you get from Kentucky Fried? Collins at 11. Chrissy's at 75 cents again. Mick's at 22. Williams is at $50. Oh, you're optimistic, dude. Thomas is at $6.50. Yes. So what does everybody think? So from Pizza Hut. Oh God, that's almost like a rarity unto itself, isn't it? When you sit and think about it, there's not much Pizza Hut stuff going around, but yeah, these things were very, very clever. But I do tend to agree. I don't think they would have held their value. Rusky Babes had said $6. So what does everybody think? Moneybag Sullivan's gone for $5. Probably not far from the truth. Remember, kids, don't Google it or anything. Just take a guess. Carol's at $2.50. What's it worth 23 years later from Pizza Hut, which in itself was almost a collectible? What do you reckon it's worth? It went for a whopping Mirror Cube Pizza Hut thing. Very, very cool. $5.50.
And that is more than I thought it would go for. All of these items from all of these premiums, usually they come into the shop with people enthusiastic about how rare they are and how they've kept them, and I've never seen them before. And then I point to our $2 bin. And what is our $2 bin full of, Dags?
Phantom Menace shit, dude.
Phantom Menace stuff. All of this stuff. So yeah, very, very hard to sell. If you collected all of them, never opened them, and had the full set, you might get a little bit of money for them, but not much more than you originally paid for them when you got them with your meal.
Yeah, Chrissy said she recently saw them up the op shop, and you are right, Moneybags. You're batting 2 for 2. You're doing very, very well. So, yes, what does that tell you about the rest of these items? Oh, look at that. It's almost like the Mandalorian's ship, isn't it, really?
Now, this is an interesting one because you can see it's actually got like 30-odd bids on it. I think 35 or 36 bids. This is two Naboo N1 Starfighters from Hasbro from 1999 in mint condition. One of them's open, one of them's still sealed in all the original bags it came in. And as Dag said, this could be the most desired item of the evening, maybe because it's not so much associated with Episode 1 anymore. It is the Mandalorian's new ship.
Razor Crest 2, we'll call it. 35 bids, right? So keep that in mind, kids. There was a little bit of demand on this. What does everybody think? Ange is still sticking with the $1. I don't know. You have 35 bids at going to $1, but we'll see what happens. Very, very groovy. Yeah, the previous one, yes, they are with moldy fries attached, which is good because Pizza Hut didn't sell chips. Colin has said 66. Gavin is at 27. Rusky Babes is at 125. It is W. Dindajarans, just with a few modifications, as we've shown you on this show previously. Could be worth a fortune. Where was I? Sorry, Rusky Babes at 125. Moneybag Sullivan's at 45. Christie's at 1138. Yep, very, very good. I got the joke. Williams at 50. Mika, $740. Holy guacamole, dude. Thomas is at 79. There you go. Very, very cool. It's almost got, you can almost smell the Mandalorian over it, eh? Grant is at 55. Okay. And Carol is at 360. It's very, very good. Very exciting. Greg has said he'll chuck it in for $2. So there you go. 35 bids, 35 cents. Yeah, why not? It works for me. What do you reckon, kids? Star Wars Naboo N1 Starfighter, 1999. Look at that. Just two of them. Absolutely fantastic, as seen in The Mandalorian. Actually, it was the Book of Boba Fett. Sorry, I just realized I got the wrong show. And the violating this is at 45 Republic credits, because remember, credits are no good to us here. What do you reckon it went for? It went for a whopping 23 years later, $186. What's the deal with that?
Well, I thought that was a good price. And I tell you what, you would know, we had a mint boxed one in the shop for over a year that we couldn't sell at $49 until The Mandalorian came out, and I opened it, defaced it, and rebranded it as a Mandalorian ship. So it really does show you how these things can be of not much interest to collectors, and then something comes along that mentions it or shows it in a different way, and all of a sudden people are after them again.
Yeah, and it's funny when you said you vandalized or violated that ship, and it actually did sell not long after it was actually aired on this episode. So go figure that, kids. There you go.
This is interesting. I would say this is actually one of the rare toys that came out for Episode 1, because they released quite a lot of action figures and a few of the ships and vehicles, but towards the end of the line, they brought out some play sets. They brought out the 3D hangar and the 3D power gen.
Not 3D.
3D feed. It's all the same thing. They brought out these two play sets, and they joined together, so they actually make quite a good display, and I haven't seen one for a while. They are quite hard to find. So this is the play set, plus you get the bonus pit droids.
The bonus curlies. And you can't say, oh, those pit droids, didn't I see those in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and whatever? So they themselves could be worth more than the actual playset. But I've never seen this either. So, yeah, very groovy. Okay, Andrew's up his bid a little bit, $15.95. Chrissy's gone for 50 cents. One bid, so one person got it. Nice and simple. Look at that, 50 cents from Christy. 1,450 from Gavin. There's a bit of a contrast. Colin said 10. Mick is at 280. Moneybag Sullivan is at 5. William is at 50. Thomas is at 600. Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? It's a bit of a rare one, but it is used and it is loose, and we don't know if it's all complete. So there you go. Very, very cool. Good stuff. Feed generator complex. Stick a bit of Darth Mauls in there and have a whale of a time. I think I said 60 for William and 600 for Thomas. Yep, very, very cool. All right, so how much do you reckon I went for, kids? With the bonus pit droids. And Carol has chucked in 199. Very, very groovy. All right, mate, how much do you reckon it went for? Very rare with bonus pit droids. It went for a whopping 30. Not rare enough.
Not even what it cost when it came out. So one of those things where I was looking, and if you wanted to collect a full set of episode 1 figures from Hasbro, you'd get them for less than what they came out 23 years ago, and most of the stuff goes unsold on eBay. Quite sad, really.
Isn't that unbelievable? $39, right? So, 23 years after the fact, and even with the pit droids, it's still worthless. So, yeah, you're right. When this first came out, it would have been like probably $60, $70 or something. So, unbelievable. Oh, my God. Action figures. Gotta love that.
It's Anakin.
Annie?
Bid on him. He's a special figure. So when episode 1 came out, of course, there was a massive toy bonanza. And of course, the cornerstone of the toy industry is Star Wars action figures. They have been around with maybe a 6-year or 10-year hiatus in the 90s constantly. This was one of the first wave when they came back for episode 1. There had been a couple of waves of classic stuff, but this is one of the first waves of episode 1 stuff. This was the type of figure that people were queuing at midnight to run in and buy 6 of them off the peg, 1 to open and 5 to put away to pay for their kids' college funds. Does this pay for your kids' college fund, Dags?
Be lucky to take my cat to the vet. All right, so it's even got the Comtech thing. There were 3 bids, so there was actually some demand for this. So there you go. So people were fighting over little Annie. So there you go. All right. Moneybag Sullivan's at 15. Ange is at 6. Colin is at 7. Gavin has gone for the $2 bin. Mick has said 12. Thomas has said 8. And Williams at 5. It is 23 years old. It is still mint in packet, right? And we're getting bids that the thing would have cost more than this to buy it. 15 cents and a match to burn it. I'm hearing you, Chrissy. I really am. Violating little Annie. That's something I'd like to see in the next movie. Is the Violet 15. Rusky Babes has said $12.50. Thomas has amended it to 25 cents. Okay, there you go. So he's gone from $8 up here to 25 cents down there. So what's the deal with that? And Carol has said $12. No one thinks that this is worth money. Surely this must be the equivalent of a vinyl Cape Jawa from 1978. I mean, surely it must be right up there. It's almost the same height. So there you go. All right, so what do you reckon? Star Wars Episode 1 action figure, mint in box. Little Annie? Absolutely. I'm so smiling to see you, sir. Must be 3 bids, must be worth an absolute fortune. 23 years after the fact. How much did it go for? It went for a whopping $1. How do you get 3 bids for $1, dude? How does that work?
Well, the same person bid 3 times just in case someone tried to outbid him.
$1 effing dollar. And funnily enough, well, Thomas said 25 cents. You're not far from it, son. Because even with what? Actually, I think you can get it, son. You have to cough up an extra. What do you call have to cough up? 75 cents. Because anyway, $2 is too high. Yeah, I think you've got it, dude. Thomas, you've changed it from $8 to 25 cents, and you've got it. So, how about that? Isn't that ridiculous? $1. Why would you bother? Just throw it out and be done with it. So.
The postage is more than 10 times what the figure is.
Yeah, it is too. That's actually, you're right, completely correct. So, but isn't that unbelievable? So 23 years later, still mint in the packet, $1. It's like and 3 bids. That's just, you're right. Did the same person bid 3 times? It's just absolutely ridiculous. So
you do realize if someone came into the shop and said, "Do you want to buy some episode 1 set?" and I said, "Oh, I'll give you $1 each," they'd probably go off at me and say, "Oh, they're worth more than that," but they're really not. A lot of them aren't.
Absolutely unbelievable. But that actually sort of leads us into the topic that we're discussing tonight. Yeah, you're right, Christy. We picked up on that. Yeah, it's 13 times the cost. It's ridiculous, isn't it? About our feature discussion about the old Phantom Menace, and there's a lot of stories, a lot of memories to be mentioned regarding this. It was a Martian bidding. Very good. Yes, and so yes, so we're going to be gapping on about the old Phantom Menace. Over to you, dude.
Yeah. So I think everyone's probably seen some of our Star Wars presentations before where we have a little bit of a talk about the movies and then we look at all the merchandise. But do you know what? There is so much Phantom Menace merchandise. It is probably too hard to catalogue everything they made, even if we did 3 or 4 shows on it. Did you want to add something, Dags?
Yeah, so just so I want to put this in, so I was part of Star Walking at the time, and of course, when Phantom Menace was sort of being announced and being brought out, it was a bit of a big deal, and we had strong connections with Gaffney International at the time, who were the licensees, right, for all Star Wars merchandise in this country. So anything that had to be produced, was going to be produced, had to be licensed through Gaffney. And there was an occasion when, must have been 1998. Where word had got out, they had a huge display of all the toys that had not yet been sent to the stores. Our club was invited to go and look at all the merchandise that was being produced because they wanted to gauge our reaction to it. Now, everybody's thinking, oh, yeah, Phantom Menace is all rubbish and crap and whatever. But you have to think, you have to wind your heads back to 1998, right? So the trailers hadn't even come out. It was all brand new, or maybe the trailer had been released, but that's as far as it went. So we got to see at Gaffney all the toys before they got released to the toy stores, right? And they actually brought in video cameras and filmed our reaction to everything. So we got to see everything, right? And at lunchtime, and I took time off work and everything's a whole bunch of us. And it was like, wow, this is really groovy. And of course, as you just said, it was merchandise to the max. There was everything you could think of, even things you couldn't think of had been produced. And I tell you what, from our perspective, it was like, oh my God, this is just magnificent. Look at all this stuff. And who knew where it was all going to end? But at the time, though, we felt unbelievably privileged, and it was such a cool thing to see it all before anybody else. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So during the lead up to Star Wars, I think, well, what we're going to look at tonight, we're not going to try and look at all the merchandise. We're going to do a show on this is 2 parts tonight. We're looking at the lead up to episode 1 because the history and I guess the oral history that we're going to be going through is just as fascinating as some of the toys. So next week we're going to be looking more at the merchandise, but this week we're going to look at the situation that led to so much merchandise being produced. Now it goes way back. The earliest reference I can find to episode 1 is, do you see that yellow piece of paper on the left at the bottom there? You've heard about George Lucas's famous legal writing pads that he used to write everything. Yeah. That's probably the earliest reference there, where it has episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in episode 6 it's got written, this is where Luke meets Obi-Wan and they start sort of their adventures. So originally, way back, he had the idea that he was going to do episode 1, but it was not going to happen for a long time. And then we fast forward to 94 or 93, and he actually sat down.
95. 95.
And well, he started writing the beginning then. It's one of, I think that's when he finished the draft, 95, but I think he started 94. So that's the earliest stuff. It's 94 there actually in the video where he's talking about he's starting to write episode 1. So what we're going to look at is more of a fan sort of view of the decade leading up to episode 1, because there was kind of a wilderness years for Star Wars. I don't know if you remember it like that, Dags, where after the original movies and a couple of TV specials and cartoons that didn't really do too well, you kind of do understand why Star Wars and Star Trek fans were kind of ostracized and left out and teased and stuff, because you were kind of putting your faith and your love into something that was really going nowhere at the time.
You are right, Gavin, about the people who are going to see the trailer. We'll discuss that later on, and because it was such a big thing. There's actually a bit of a story behind the trailer, and you've also made a point about the Phantom landfill. Well, yeah, because it's almost like what happened before the movie and what happened after the movie, and what we're talking about in this episode is what happened before the film. And hindsight is a wonderful thing, and it's easy to hang shit can Phantom Menace from here to Christmas, but and this is what I used to say to a lot of people, even though I was not a Phantom Menace fan, to say, but when the lead up to the film was such a big deal, it's like every Star Wars fan was waiting for it. Every Star Wars fan loved it. And they have to admit that, right? Anybody who says, "No, I wasn't interested," are lying,
It's
right?
a
I
lie.
was there at the time as a part of Star Walking, and everyone was chomping at the bit, waiting for this thing to come out. So, and this our discussion tonight is for that. So, if anything, everybody watching this, wind your clocks back to before May 25, 1999, and let's see how it all sort of how it all went, because there's plenty of stories to be told. There you go.
So fan speculation, and this is the earliest sort of fan speculation going way back before Phantom Menace was even really announced. But there's been fan clubs pretty much since Star Wars was launched. And after Return of the Jedi, the general sort of populace kind of forgot about Star Wars. And there'd be some books and some comics, but really not very much. But you know where fandom sort of lived? It was at meetings where people would go and talk about what was going to happen with Star Wars. And for a lot of time, the best you could get is maybe there'll be a good book. Maybe there'll be a good comic. Oh, I've heard there's going to be a video game. Wouldn't that video game have been great if it was a movie? But no one really thought that Star Wars is going to come back. I've got to say, although George Lucas said, I'm going to make 9 movies, and then it shortened down to I'm going to make 6 movies, after he made the first 3, once it got about 5 years out, I was like, I don't know if he's going to actually ever come back and do this. And he had only directed Star Wars. He hadn't directed a movie since Star Wars, I think, had he? It was The Phantom Menace was the next movie he directed after Star Wars. So he had pretty much been inactive as a director. And Lucasfilm, his production company, didn't have a great output of films either. It wasn't like a lot of stuff was happening at Lucasfilm, but you could say that they were the sleeping giant.
So the Vile has made mentioned about the Phantom Menace. We are going to bring that up later on. And Christy has actually, for those who has asked, what would a DVD copy of the Phantom Menace be worth? And do you know off the top of your head, have you had a copy of one?
Of the Phantom Menace or the Fandom?
The documentary, which I am going to bring up later on.
Yeah, probably not very much.
Yeah,
Probably.
That's fair enough. I mean, it is a documentary about fans, so I totally get that too. So there you go. And you are right, Rusky Babes. Everybody, and it was understandable too. As like it was made by George Lucas, it's going to be the first movie of the prequels. What could possibly go wrong? I mean, yeah. History's a different thing altogether. But anyway, there you go.
So I don't know if you would remember this. I remember this big time because it was a huge announcement. Now, it came out in Variety that George Lucas had announced he was going to come out of retirement or come back to making movies. So on October the 4th, 1993, it was announced in Variety magazine that Lucasfilm planned on producing the next 3 Star Wars prequels. Now, I had a look online, and this is pretty much pre-internet. Of course, the internet existed back then, but there is nothing really, even in the Wayback Machine from that time. I found one article that was still coming up on Google from Deseret, which is a newspaper in Utah, which basically said, Lucasfilm's doing the new movies. Incredible. My recollection, I don't know what your recollection is, Tags. My recollection was a friend calling me because, back then it was phone calls. It wasn't emails or anything. And he basically said, they're making the new Star Wars prequels and Macaulay Culkin is playing young Luke Skywalker. So that was it's coming back. I got that call and I was like, no, that's never going to happen. And it took days for it to be confirmed because I don't remember it being on the news. It wasn't newsworthy to be on TV, but it was in industry magazines. And then the Star Wars Insider came that confirmed it.
Yeah, the reason why it got announced at that time, you can imagine. So George has seen what Steven Spielberg has done with Jurassic Park and said, beauty, the visual effects exist. They look spectacular. We're off to the races, kids, and away we go. So, and of course, with the resurgence of Star Wars after the Heir to the Empire novel series had come out in 1991, so one, that was like saying, hey, yes, there's still a huge fan base for the Star Wars franchise. And 2, we can do the visual effects the way, make the movies the way I wanted to. And the rest is sort of just went from there. So, which of course is why this came in between, the Specky Eddies. Yeah,
the special editions. Well, just before we talk about the special editions, it's interesting with the timing of the announcement. It was 10 years after Return of the Jedi. And it was still 6 years before the Phantom Menace came out. And I have to say, the 16-year wait from Return of the Jedi to the Phantom Menace is probably the longest I've ever actually remembered waiting for something to come out. So 16 years. That was a long time. And like Dag said, the reason we got the special editions because Lucasfilm was gearing up for the production of Episode 1. So when we go to the special editions, he was basically testing, could you do visually accurate CGI characters? Could you make a stormtrooper hopping off a dewback fool the audience into thinking it is real? Could Jabba the Hutt be photorealistic? The interesting thing about the special editions, the anticipation of them was through the roof. I was just unbelievably hyped to be able to go and see the Star Wars movies at the cinema again. And although some people go, oh, it's nice to see Jabba, but he didn't have to be in the movie, it was kind of universally loved. I don't remember many people not liking the special editions when they came out. It's only in years later where he's gone, no, these are the only editions that people have got their backs up against them, sort of thing.
Yeah, it was the whole thing of seeing new footage, new material, and you are right, deleted scenes have now been reinserted, even though, as someone else pointed out to me, the Jabba sequence with Han wasn't necessary because you get to see the Millennium Falcon ahead of time, so its big reveal later on is useless, and the whole thing with the Rontos and whatever else. I mean, it was great from a curiosity perspective, but from enhancing the story, it didn't work. But you are right, at the time, it was like, oh my God, look what they've done. This is spectacular. And even though in hindsight, as years later, people have now sort of turned away from them. So, yeah.
It's interesting because Christy says there she has photos at the special edition launch at Maya, Melbourne. I was there. You were there. Just about Tim Ferguson was there. Everybody who was into Star Wars was there. That was huge.
The difference was I was on the stage. You guys were in the audience. So there you go, because Star Walking promoted that and was a part of that. So the big costume presence of all those people up there. I got a photograph of it. I didn't think to bring them up, but I was on the stage looking down at all you minions. You go, ordinary fans. So as I said, this was right in the guts of when our club was like flying a massive, massive high, and I was right there for the middle of it. So,
do you was there any club special screenings because they were at the cinema? And what shocked everyone, Star Wars came out and made $100 million at the cinema on a reissue. And movies had been reissued and done well at the cinema and made maybe $10 million, but it added $100 million to the total of the existing movie. And that actually blew everyone away to the point where they brought Empire and Jedi forward so they could capitalize on the excitement because it was going to be months apart. And I think they ended up doing one every 2 weeks. Do you remember how big the buzz was for those?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, the screenings, we had our own screenings. We had them all organized as well. And it's very fun. It's probably one of the rare occasions that when the videotapes came out, because DVD wasn't that popular back then, you could have both the widescreen version and the 4:3 version. And one was in a silver box, one was in a gold box. And for us, we got to choose which one we wanted. But that special edition launch at Maya was a big event.
Yes.
And you're right. It's like everybody was involved because it was the thing. So the film came out in '97, as in in the cinemas, and was released on video a few months later. So, and that just paved the way for what was going to be coming next. So,
if I remember correctly, you actually had to put your name into a lottery to be able to buy it on the day because they didn't have enough copies for how many people had turned up to buy it, and that is quite unbelievable for a VHS release.
Yeah. But the core part is, as you said, when because the first movie got most of the changes, the other two not so much. But yeah, in the end, it was like in the cinema going, far out, this is awesome. But even though a lot of it was dated very, very quickly at the time, it was a real massive buzz. So, but anyway, a couple of years later, the name of Episode 1 comes out, and before you know it, it was given a title. What do you reckon?
So the title, it is one of those interesting things with hindsight. The Phantom Menace, everyone knows it's called that. Probably the edginess and the controversy has kind of melted away. Like all of the movies, once you've seen them and you're used to it, it's kind of just what you've always known. But when the Phantom Menace title was released, it was probably the first time I remember fandom going, oh, everything George Lucas has done up until this point, except for the holiday special, we've kind of liked. But I don't know if I like the name The Phantom Menace. Now, to me, I thought it was fine because it actually did sound like what Star Wars is, like a a weekly studio episode thing, and you'd get like the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and it's just comes and goes kind of thing. But a lot of people did not like the Phantom Menace, and at the same time, they were speculating, who is the Phantom Menace? What is the Phantom Menace? What's it all going to be about? Do you remember like fandom talking about the Phantom Menace?
I like how you keep telling me if I remember. I know we used to hold Skyforce meetings discussing this. I was running meetings in 2 states, both here and in Sydney. All we were doing was discussing this stuff ad infinitum. So yes, I do remember everything. Yes, no one could get it. It didn't make sense, which is kind of ironic because if you look at the subtitles of all the movies, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, or what came before them, A New Hope. That by itself is a meaningless title. But yeah, you're right. It didn't make sense. Everybody thought the word Jedi was going to be there, Force is going to be there, Dark Side. But when you got Phantom Menace, I think it's the word menace that causes the problem, not the word phantom so much. If you had the phantom something else, it may work, but it did jar because, and I agree with you, because it's meant to be like a Flash Gordon episodic title thing, it works. But to start things off, episode 1, you needed a title that would just kick ass. The Empire Strikes Back was a great title. Return of the Jedi was a great title. Phantom Menace, not so much, and that definitely caused a few people to be sort of scratching their heads a little bit. So, and before I go any further, Joe's, I'm just going to bring this up. Inside Counter Star Walking and all the hyped area. Well, there you go. A great episode for a future week. Yes, me yapping about the old days, indeed. Go on. Sorry, dude.
Well, the other thing with the Phantom Menace is up until that point, fans were pretty sure it was going to be called The Beginning, episode 1, The Beginning, because on all the scripts that had leaked or there were pictures of or had even been seen in the previews and the Star Wars magazines, George Lucas had episode 1, The Beginning, episode 1, The Beginning. So everyone had called it that up until the Phantom Menace, when everyone was like, oh, what's this?
But the funny thing is, even if today, and you do it all the time, everybody still calls it episode 1, right? It's like the Phantom Menace title doesn't resonate. And all, as you know, the merchandise, and we'll discuss that as time goes, none of it had the Phantom Menace written on it. It was all episode 1. And it's funny, it's almost like saying, because episode 1 could mean anything, really, but everybody knows it's a Star Wars reference. But yeah, I think it's because of that title. Everybody says episode 1, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. No one ever says episode 1, 2, 3. So it's almost like by default it's been given that one name, and it's going to stick with episode 1, even though I don't call it that.
By that, you would also have to say, and you've noticed this before, because I don't even know. Like 4, 5, and 6, no brainers. Everyone knows them. Yeah. No one calls the sequels 7, 8, and 9. If someone comes in and goes, "Oh, have you got anything from episode 8?" I have to think about what they're actually talking about, but I don't really, because no one ever calls them that. You know, they made. I think it was a marketing decision where they said 1, 2, and 3 are not remembered as fondly as 5, 6, and 7. Sorry, 4, 5, and 6. So we're gonna distance this. It is The Force Awakens, which is almost like a new beginning.
I know that's a completely different discussion, but the idea of calling it episode 1 was genius because everybody knew that because Star Wars had started with 4, that this was the beginning, and it didn't need any other title. And just calling it that was enough for everybody to understand what it was, which is kind of funny. So it's a subtitle is actually more common than its actual title. But anyway, as it turned out, and there's a comment here from Christy, which I've lost, about the Phantom Menace. Until we had context, it was puzzling. But yes, at the time, there was a lot of people thinking, okay, it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's not sexy. It's not a sexy title. It's not a spunky title. What are you going to go and see? I'm going to see the Phantom Menace. It just didn't work. So even then, you are right. There was slight cracks in the system. So there you go. Oh, I think you're going to say something.
Oh, this was the very birth of the internet as well. So now when you get like someone who doesn't like something or someone does like something, there's instantly a snowballing with people choosing sides. Back then in the early days of the internet, you were only getting fan mail and, fan newsletters, and the only interaction was phone calls if you had a friend who was in or club meetings. So it was one of those really interesting things where I remember going, oh, I don't know if I like this title or I like this title, and not knowing until people came into the shop and talked to me whether I was in the majority or the minority. It was less of a group sort of a decision back then. It was like you're more likely to have your own opinion back in those days.
So the comment here, the Viola said he didn't like the New Hope as a title, and you're right, as a title, it's shithouse. But at the time, Star Wars didn't have a subtitle, right? It was just Star Wars until they realized they were going to make sequels. So they had to give it a title, and they just said, "Oh, we'll just call it a New Hope," without really sitting and thinking about it. So you are right. And I call it a New Hope just purely for simplicity, so there's never any confusion about what movie I'm talking about. But you are right. A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, it doesn't gel. But I think people just call it Star Wars, and everybody knows what they're talking about. Just like saying Episode 1. We know what we're talking about. So, yeah, good stuff. But yes, it did cause a bit of discussion at the time. So there you go. We move on.
Now, we're getting into the lead up to Episode 1 now, The Phantom Menace. And unbelievably, it was probably the food retailers that had the first bite of the marketing cherry. And this is because George Lucas basically paid nothing to make the prequels. Do you know, Dags, who paid to make the prequels?
Would have been all the income from the merchandising. Am I right?
It was PepsiCo.
Oh,
PepsiCo.
really? Okay.
It was the biggest deal in history at the time. They paid $1 billion for global rights to merchandise episodes 1, 2, and 3. Now, the movies, I think, at the time cost about $200 million each. So he was in the black before the movie had even started filming, which is genius, really. So when you've got that kind of investment, you are going to see a lot of trying to claw that money back. And without a doubt, I haven't even had to check this up, but I know without a doubt, Episode 1 was the most marketed movie in history. There were, in the lead up to Episode 1, commercial breaks just on regular television where every single ad was a tie-in product to Episode 1, and it would have toys, Pepsi, KFC, Pizza Hut. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. I was like, finally, Star Wars has taken over. Like, every single ad. It is interesting because I loved it. I was working in a record shop at the time, and I was talking to customers who were sick to the back teeth of Star Wars before the movie was even released because of the absolute visual onslaught on television.
Yeah, it wasn't a good time to be a Star Trek fan. What can I say? Eh? Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I was just going to say, what do you remember from that time?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you've got to stop asking if I remember. I remember everything. So, yeah, exactly right. And of course, everybody thought, and they had a good reason to think, that it was just going to be winner chicken dinner across the board. What could possibly go wrong? It is the film that, like the franchise, had already made hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more than that. They're making more of them. They're going to be brand new. They're like, it's the state of the art. Okay, it's the history of the story. Every Star Wars fan on the planet, and there's lots of them, are going to watch it again and again and again and again. Buy all the shit. Well, sorry, I just hit my microphone. Buy all the merchandise, because proof had been shown from the late 70s, early 80s that merchandise was the go. It was like going to be perfect utopia for both the fans and the merchandisers. And of course, what happened was a complete role reverse of that. But nobody knew at the time. That's the reason why, if you go right up to the point when you're walking into the cinema or before the movie premiered in America, it was a perfect time to be a Star Wars fan. It really was. A lot of people won't admit it, but it was. So there you go.
It absolutely was. And I think retailers actually didn't know what they were getting themselves in for as well, because I was buying for myself and buying for a business. So I was going all over the place buying things. I would go in and I would ask stuff, and retailers would look at me like I am crazy. I would go into KFC and say, I want to buy one of each of the meals, but I don't want you to put the chicken in the containers. I just want the boxes all fold up. You don't even have to make them. You can put the chicken in something else. I don't really care about the chicken. I just want the toys. That's nuts.
Did you know, I think it was Pizza Hut or Kentucky Fried, they had the T-shirts, the blue T-shirts, right?
I've got them.
The C3. Hey?
I've got them.
Yeah, no, hang on. That wasn't what I was going to say. What happened? It was a Kentucky Fried or Pizza Hut? Who had them? It was Kentucky Fried, wasn't it? Kentucky Fried. The staff were wearing them, and people were walking in wanting to buy them off the staff, asking or offering hundreds of dollars for the shirt. The shirts are shit, right? If you've ever seen their crap, but so was the mindset. Yeah, no. So was the mind. Sorry about looking around for it. So was the mindset of how people were. They said anything they could get their hands on, buying them off the staff. And of course, the staff couldn't sell them, but they were being offered massive amounts of money. And when they produced the really large statues for a Pizza Hut, like of Darth Maul and Jar Jar Binks, people were prepared to cop up thousands of dollars. Remember, the film hadn't come out yet. but they knew these characters, especially the Darth Maul ones. But yeah, imagine being a staff member at Kentucky Fried. Oh, what would you like? And Colonel's original recipe and a bucket. No, I want your shirt, and I'll cop up $500 for it. Give it to me right now, even if it looks shit. It's like that's how it was at the time. So yeah.
Well, the story I have about the standees that were in Pizza Hut, some of the stores auctioned them off for charity, and some of them gave them as raffles to the staff members. And I was working in the collectible shop in Camberwell, and someone rang me, and it was a girl, and she said, "Look, I work at Pizza Hut, and I've won this huge alien in a raffle. Would you be interested in buying it?" And it was Jar Jar Binks, and I said, "Yes, I would buy it." And she said, "How much is it? Would you pay?" And I paid her $2,000 for a life-size Jar Jar Binks. And she came in, and I said, "Well, how did you get it?" And they said, "Oh, we had like a thing running the whole month that who was the best customer service for a great prize." And I won it. And I said to her, "What a fantastic prize." And she looked at me and she said, "That is the worst prize they've ever given away at Pizza Hut, and I won it." And I was like, it's such a different point of view depending if you're a fan and what you collect and stuff like that. Ultimately, she got $2,000 for it, which I think is pretty good to win from your company in a sort of competition. But for me, I was thinking, oh, I hope I can get this cheap. And she was like thinking, oh, this is a load of rubbish.
I don't know who this person is, but yeah, she was right. Absolutely true. Remember, Rusky Bays, you're right. It is all worthless. Before, after the movie, it was worthless. Before, right? And that's the thing. It's a completely different mindset before. We're still talking about before at the moment, right? So at the time, there were people willing to clamber over each other to try and get these things. At Skyforce, we were given a Mace Windu preview figure. You've actually got one in the shop, right? It was actually going to be like a door prize at the end of the night for our Christmas party. So this would have been 1997, I'm taking as a guess.
Yeah.
We had people who were ready to cough up hundreds of dollars right there just to get it, right? It was the first item they had seen from the Phantom Menace. And it's just amazing sort of mindset that people went through. But there's a couple of comments. I've got to read them. But while you're doing that, you can talk about what you want to discuss.
Well, during this time as well, these days everyone knows about Star Wars Celebration. But Star Trek had been known for doing Star Trek conventions. Star Wars was popular, but it's probably unbelievable now. Star Trek was probably hosting bigger and better conventions at the time. No one had run at a professional level a big Star Wars convention. So the first one was run in the run-up to Episode 1. It was Celebration in Denver, Colorado. And a lot of people know it as Mudstock because it rained the entire weekend and there was a lot of outdoor activities.
Okay, big comment that's come through from Rusky Babes. Have to remember, there's a lot of serious fans. They would buy everything, and we're going to discuss that probably in the next episode. It was just to the point of like, you know, credit cards just got like, were practically dying because they were just getting overused. They are intent, and you're right. Some people did build bigger houses just to fit all that stuff in. That's completely true. The asked a local lolly shop for the cardboard Qui-Gon Jinn. They gave to me at the end of the promotion, which is kind of groovy. Now here's one for you. Star Wars Celebration. You know what? Do you know where the idea for Star Wars Celebration came from?
I thought it was Sansweet, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, and where did Sansweet get the idea from?
Probably Star Trek.
No, got it from Star Walking. So there you go. So for those, this is a little bit of unknown history that people don't know anything about. But Steven Sansweet, of course, is the world's biggest Star Wars collector. He was actually working for Lucasfilm, part of fan relations back in the 1990s. What a great job that would have been. Yeah. He actually, because was a guest of honor at Force 2, our convention here. You're going to remember, nobody was running conventions in the world except for Star Walking, right? So Force 2, which was 1997, which was celebrating Star Wars turning 20 years old, had a massive convention. 500 people turned up, enormous banquet, a spectacular, loved it. And Steve came along and he actually said to Shane Morrissey, the guy who was running Star Walking at the time, he said, you know what? We, as in Lucasfilm, should be doing stuff like this. And they weren't, right? So if you're wondering why Celebration started in 1999 and not 1989, is because no one had thought of it except Star Walking. And it was actually just, he said, yeah, we need to do something like this. So he's clearly gone back to America and said, I've been to Australia. They're doing this fantastic shit with all the fans. It's awesome. We need to do something here. Here's the money. Give us the budget. Off we go. And that's where Celebration came from. So thanks, Star Walking, for that. So there you go.
Well, I thought it was interesting looking at that picture. If we bring it up again, you've got like a massive, it was a tent at the time that's set up for Star Wars fans in this Star Wars Celebration. Do you know how many people I could pick in that picture that were in costume?
None.
It is actually quite strange going back that far that no one was in cosplay. Cosplay probably wasn't even a word at the time. It would have just been
it wasn't.
fancy dress or dress up. And I do remember going and seeing episode 1, and the people who were dressed as Jedi, people sort of mumbled like, oh, losers kind of thing. It wasn't a big thing at the time, which now you would go to an event like that, and the people who weren't in costume would probably be less than the people who came in costume. So it really shows you how things have changed. But that was a big event. You didn't go or know anyone who went?
No. I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, it was big for the time, but it was bigger than anybody expected it to be. I mean, Celebration. I mean, one of the things that was a key thing about Celebration being held in the US is they had a lot of the actors turn up, right?
Yeah.
Because they all live locally, right? Whether it be in England or in America. And that was obviously the start. And then from then on, they just became enormous things. I mean, in 1999, I mean, like the 501st, only started 2 years prior. And at that point, they're pretty embryonic, and the Rebel Legion didn't exist. And all these costuming groups that are everywhere today weren't around. And you are right. I mean, people costumed back then, but they just did it for themselves. They weren't part of any particular group. So it was a completely different world. There's a comment here I wanted to bring out. Gavin said, did Steve start as the Star Wars archivist? No, that was Don Bees. But Steve was the biggest collector. He still is the biggest collector in the world, and eventually got to work for Lucasfilm as manager of fan relations. And he was the guy, just very quickly, who announced Revenge of the Sith, the title of the film, to the world, right? So in Celebration, he was wearing this shirt like what I'm wearing now, for example, took the shirt off, and he had the T-shirt with the logo underneath, Revenge of the Sith. And can you just imagine being in the audience when that happened? It's like, and the big TV screens are showing it. Oh my God, that would have been just fantastic. And Christy, Star Walking, that's where Celebration came from. So it may have happened somewhere down the track, as you said, with the Star Trek ones, but at the point, they didn't even think of that at the time. So there you go. So, yes, fans, mate. Fans going completely nuts over Star Wars. Very groovy.
Well, now here's the other interesting thing, and this is where it starts coming into the rip it off the card sort of arena, the Midnight Madness. Now, I have never before or since seen the madness for toys that was generated by episode 1. Now, we have seen all the stuff that we have shown before this comes years before. So the hype was going on for years and years and years. Now, a lot of people were just as excited about the toys coming back as the movie itself, because you've got to remember, at the time, if you collected Star Wars, there was a whole heap less than what there is now. And most people had the entire collection of original figures and had kept up to date with the sort of new stuff. But this was all new characters, a new movie, and it was unbelievably hyped. Now, I went to 2 of the midnights here. I went to my local Kmart, grabbed what I wanted, took it home, and then went to the one in the city, which was still going, which I think you were at with Star Walking. Is that right? With Chris Brennan as Vader?
Yeah. Yeah, I've forgotten which one. I've done a few of my time, and I've kind of lost count of which one is which. They're all the same to me.
Well, I won't ask you then what you remember. I'll just say
I remember a lot of people buying a lot of stuff. I certainly remember that. You know, they couldn't. There was one in particular, and I can't remember which movie. See, I've done so many of them now, where we get to the store and the staff can't pack the shelves fast enough, and everybody's queuing up outside, and they're waiting to open up the roller shutters and all the rest of it. So, and it's just total insanity. And I've done a couple of Toys R Us ones. I've just lost track. So that one I don't remember.
It was unbelievable. There were guys, and they had shopping trolleys loaded to over the top with just Star Wars figures going through the checkouts, like, you know, buying all those Anakin Skywalkers that they can sell on eBay for 99 cents 23 years later. But here's some pictures. There was a video and a couple of news videos, but they went too long, so I've just taken some screen grabs from them of the craziness. And there were lines that were longer than Toys R Us going around the block to let you in to buy Star Wars. And they dedicated massive areas to Star Wars stock. And as Dag said, they put in probably pallet loads of stuff, and by the morning it was all gone. And you couldn't find Darth Maul for about a month after the movie came out because they were so popular.
Yeah, rumors were going around that staff at Toys R Us stores were swiping all the Darth Mauls and stashing away, buying them themselves, knowing fully well there was going to be a shortage of them. And of course, what happened, and this is an interesting one, is I think people had that mentality of what happened with the original figures that came out in the 70s and the early 80s. Buy these things, storm away. 20, 30 years from now, they're going to be worth an absolute fortune. This is obviously now 20 years later. But everybody just assumed, because no one was buying with these items to play with them. It was that whole mindset. Oh no, I'm going to stash them away as part of my collection, not realizing that if 10,000 people do exactly the same thing, then clearly the value is not going to be there. It's only when there's like 10 of them, not 10,000. So it was just how the people's mindset works. Oh God, I missed out the first time with Star Wars, Empire and Jedi. I'll do it now with Phantom Menace. It's mate. You're right. Funding the kids' college fund in the future, and that's exactly what people were thinking.
The only other pop culture event that I can think of that generated the same kind of publicity and mania was actually the Death of Superman comic, and that's another one where there were queues around the block from comic book shops, and people were getting 4 or 5 of them. And again, that's worth nothing because no one opened it, no one read it, everyone put it away as an investment, which means they're still plentiful.
Mick's coming. He actually was running the Kmart toy department. Oh, how lucky were you at this time? It was insane how better it was. Yeah, thanks to the staff taking. Exactly right. Everybody just thought that way, and clearly Maul, because the film hadn't come out yet, Maul was clearly the guy, the main dude to get, and so yeah, it's hard to fathom. And for those people who weren't around at that period in time, and I think everybody watching this show probably was, but if you weren't, you can't even begin to imagine the mindset that people went through. And you are right. There were people who probably saved up all this cash back then because, cash was still a bit of a thing.
Yeah.
And to say, mate, I cannot buy. I've only got so many arms, right? And just buying shit. And yeah, you're right. And because everybody thought it was just going to be fantastic for them. So there you go.
It also changed how merchandisers and I guess chain stores worked. Up until that point, people who called Toys R Us or Kmart were genuinely looking for products, and they would go and check if they had them on the shelf. What happened when Toys R Us and Kmart and Target tried to cater for the collectible market? They got people ringing looking for rare items. And I used to know the people who managed Toys R Us in Chadstone, and they had a directive down from the company head. If someone rings looking for a particular Star Wars toy, we're just going to presume it isn't on the shelf because that's what everyone's looking for. So tell the person you're going to go check the shelf, put them on hold for 30 seconds, do whatever you're doing, then pick the phone up and just say, oh, we've looked and it's not there. So they were getting more wasted time for stocking Star Wars than they actually were making money out of it at that point.
So, clearly the collectors were out there wanting to buy a lot of shit, right? And obviously someone manufacturing this stuff had to manufacture a lot of shit. And sometimes, how do you make extra money from something when you only got one product? And that, of course, is to do variations. So, yeah.
Well, before episode 1 came out, and this was one of those major things for spoilers, the books came out, the comics came out, the visual dictionary came out. I couldn't resist. I bought all 4 copies of the hardback, and I read it straight away. There were no spoilers. There was no surprises when I went into the movie because I had the set of the cards, the comic books, the books, and all of that. So I pretty much knew what I was getting myself into when I went in. These days, they still do release the books before the movie, probably closer to the movie than we got, just because you've also got to remember at the time, Star Wars Episode 1 came out in America about a month before it came out here. Well, now they have global release, but we got all the merchandise at the same time. So we actually had the toys, the books, and all of that a month before the movie, where America only got them the week before.
Yeah, the point that I was going to bring up is the fact they released the hardcover book. And, of course, one book isn't enough. They produced 4 different jackets for it, right? So you got to buy the same book 4 times. And it was like, you friggin' scurvy dogs. Who thought of that? And it's like, well, if instead of making $20 a book, we can make 20, 40, we can make 60 or $80 a book by selling with different jackets. And I remember at the time, people are saying, well, I've already got this jacket and that jacket. I need the other 2. It's like, who wants the same book 4 times? And he couldn't just buy the jacket by itself. So that's when I twigged really early on back then that I thought, hang on, there are people out there who are really playing the game of saying, how can we milk this? How can we make extra money off this thing where we only have one product? And it's like, oh, you absolutely scurvy dogs. So that's what I was alluding to anyway. Yeah.
If you look at that picture, that is exactly the same with the comic book, where there was the Darth Maul cover, the Anakin cover, the Padme cover. And if you look there's the Premiere magazines, which had 4 different covers as well. And do you know who bought all of them? Me. So
That's
It
exactly right. And that's how the process works because it sucks in the collectors. Christy said she had a friend who gave you all the jackets. You were lucky, Christy, because a lot of people I know had to buy the damn books 4 times. And some of them are obviously harder to get than others. Like Anakin's easy. Darth Maul, mate, is hard as anything. So,
yeah.
yeah, exactly right. So, I mean, Rusky Babe's got the art, and the art books for Star Wars movies typically are pretty damn good too. But I mean, how much of a bastard can you be producing the same thing freaking 4 times, you Scooby dogs? So,
Well, do you know
yeah.
even the art book for episode 1 has 2 different covers? One with the pod
Yeah.
race on and one with the Naboo fighter. So they really milked it for everything they got. And this is where, as we got into the lead up to seeing the movie, people like you, not so much me, I wasn't so dry. I were getting jaded about how merchandise this movie was, with all the food products, all the books, all the toys. Some people were like, fantastic, bring it on, like me, buy everything. But some people put the brakes on and said, hold on, they're scurvy dogs. And that would have been you.
Oh yeah, I did not buy a single thing from Phantom Menace, not nothing at all. So yes, my shields are up, and your mind powers will not work on me, boys.
Well, one of the interesting things for the Phantom Menace is there was almost a collective fan. I guess it's like sharing the experience of you were going to line for a long time for this movie. Now, I don't know if I'm not going to say because you will remember. It was 2 Australians that went over to America
Yep.
and decided they were going to queue up for a year. It was for charity, but I did think, who has a year to waste in line queuing up for a movie? But a lot of people did queue for, on the first day, particularly about 24 hours. Now, when I got the tickets to episode 1, this was before cinemas were assigning seats. So I arranged with friends to go 4 hours before the movie. And I went 4 hours before the movie, and I was not anywhere near close to the front of the queue. The other interesting thing for episode 1, before I had seen this movie, I had bought tickets to 4 different sessions. So I was seeing it the midnight session, and then the next day with my family at like the 8 o'clock session. And then I'd sing it with friends on the weekend, and I was seeing it another time on the weekend just in case. So that shows you the mentality of how much money this movie was going to make, because I wasn't the only one that did that. There were people who saw this a lot of times and bought multiple tickets before it even came out.
In the documentary, The Phantom Menace, which I will bring up a little bit later on, 2 people both said that they bought multiple tickets for multiple sessions coming up. And sometimes one lady said, well, I'm seeing it with my auntie tomorrow, then my sister, then my brother, then my cousin, then my this, all in different sessions. It's very funny about people having to queue up and line up and all the rest, because Star Walking, we ran our own screenings, right? And it was actually at the Hoyt Cinema Centre, Cinema Number 1, which was the home of Star Wars for decades, because that was where all the original movies premiered. So for us, it was a coup to have it there, even though the cinema was a little bit outdated from a technological and sound perspective at that point. But it was the biggest cinema in Melbourne. So we were able to get the Hoyt's number 1 cinema, which was, as I said, the traditional home of the film. So we didn't have to queue up. Everybody else had to queue up to get into the cinema. We ourselves, our tickets are all organised because we did it ourselves. And as to be expected, we filled the place. So, yeah.
Good.
But you are right, though, lining up for screenings. A lot of people sort of really got into it and became friends and all the rest of it. And some good stories come out of it.
It was the only time ever, I don't know if this has happened with Infinity War since or anything like that. It was the only time ever I went to Knox Cinema 20, and all 20 cinemas were showing The Phantom Menace, and they were all sold out at midnight. And I had tickets to Cinema 6, because that was the only THX approved cinema in Melbourne. So all the times I saw it, I think the first 4 times I saw it there because it was a bigger screen. At the time, it might have been Cinema 12 cinemas, I think, at Knox.
I don't know if it was the first time, because Return of the Jedi premiered at Mid-City Cinema in the city here, and all the cinemas, I think, at least more than one, was showing the film at midnight as well. I know, because I was at the premiere of that. That was back in 83, October 26, for those who have good memories. It is sort of interesting how sort of things play out. How do you fit more people in the cinemas? Just open up more cinemas. It's the way to go. Where are we? I was about to say, okay, it's now reached 10 o'clock. We're going to keep going because we haven't got far to go, and I think we're enjoying the chat anyway. So let's just stick around for a few more minutes, kids. I like the Phantom Menace, and it'll take a while to get to where it's got to go, but we'll get there in the end. So now this is a funny one we're about to show you. The Vile's going to get very excited over this one, right? I remember that one of the worst things you can do before a movie comes out is when you buy this and you look at the back. Spoiler alert.
So the soundtrack, a lot of people were disappointed by different aspects of the movie when it came out. Episode 1, John Williams' score is probably my favorite of all the Star Wars scores. The Duel of the Fates is one of the best movie music pieces ever written, in my opinion, to the point where I saw it debut on Rage because so many people bought the single of it that it made it onto the charts, and Star Wars was on Rage in the countdown, and that blew my mind because I could not conceive of that happening up until that point. Did you? Where did you hear it first?
Oh, I can't remember where I heard. I mean, but you are right. Duel of Fates got absolutely pounded to death. Even like when we ran Force 3, the convention. So we ran a convention about a week or two after the movie came out, and it was Duel of the Fates was just the thing. It was almost like played on a loop. It was worse than Star Trek, and when that came out, everybody was playing that everywhere. So yeah, Duel of the Fates copped a bit of a pounding big time. But of course, as is always the case, they don't just produce one soundtrack. They're going to do multiple covers and multiple styles. And of course, a lot of people got sucked in. They get it, they read the back, and they read the comment, Qui-Gon's funeral. Spoiler alert. So there you go. And with spoilers in mind, if you remember before the film even screened, there was the Angela Bishop special. It aired before about a day or two the film came out. And she even mentioned to Liam Neeson, oh, your character's not coming back for the next movie. Oh, spoiler alert. And I had people telling me, it's like, oh my God, they gave away a spoiler. So why'd you watch it for? You should watch it after the movie, not before the movie, you knob. So, yes, it was pretty obvious that
Didn't he say something to her like, oh, this is Star Wars. Anything can happen. I could be back in the next movie, trying to sort of make up for her spoiler, I think.
Yeah, obviously Moneybag Sullivan got caught out by that. It was the classic thing ever. But yes, the music for all the movies of the prequel trilogy was just outstanding. And you can criticize them as much as you want, but you can't knock the music. And you are right. If you're going to have a signature tune to sell the film, Duel of the Fates was definitely the way to go. And everybody loved it. I think as soon as it starts with the choir music, bang, people are sucked in. So, yeah, it was very, very groovy.
You can't knock the music. Nobody can knock the music.
Good on you.
Now, it's unbelievable, but a lot of the trailers came out after people were already in line for the cinema, for the screenings, because people were crazy and queued for so long. The trailer was attached to a movie by Bruce Willis called Mercury Rising, and they think that it added $10 million to the opening weekend of that movie because people went and saw the trailer and walked out after the trailer was on. For the image on the bottom with the mist is a very important image because that is the first new live Star Wars footage people had seen in 16 years.
It was freaking awesome, wasn't it? I mean, it starts off with that, and you go, that looks spectacular, and you were sucked in. And I totally agree with you, dude. It was magic. And even today, the trailer still holds up. It's really good shit.
I remember watching the trailer and going, "This is mind-blowing." The time, sorry, yep.
Okay.
At the time, there hadn't been a trailer that I had seen with as many special effects in, and I thought, if this is the trailer, imagine how freaking awesome the movie is going to be.
So the two moments that made the thing like spectacular, right? That would have had fans, and I have to use some pretty crass terminology, absolutely like lose their load. One, you're right, is this seek shot here, right, of the Caduceus on Naboo. But when Maul activated the second end of the saber, no one had ever seen a double-ended lightsaber before, and when that happened, right, it was boom. And I thought it worked and it didn't work because it worked because it was so fantastic, but it didn't work because it was a spoiler. It was like, oh, we already know he's got a double-ended saber. So had that just happened in the movie, it would have been fantastic. But for the trailer, everybody just went nuts. I thinking, shit, we had never seen that before. First time ever. And I thought, mate, that is just, give me the tickets now. I can't wait for the thing to come out. So,
and this was very, very early in the life of the internet for most people. This was dial-up, where to get a trailer to download, you're probably about 6 hours to see like the 2-minute trailer. But there was a site called the Force Net, which wasn't official, but it was
.net. It's the Force.net. You got to put the dot in there.
Oh, okay. The Force.net. But it was one of those things where it was essential to go there every day. And there were rumors Darth Maul may have a double-ended lightsaber, and all these people going, no way, that could never happen. But it wasn't confirmed until the trailer came out. So it was very interesting times. But the trailer definitely added to the hype, and everyone was some people go, oh, what's this geisha-looking girl? Kind of looks cool, doesn't look like anything in Star Wars before. What are those pod races? Are they like speeder bikes and stuff like that? But the trailer massively added to the hype. I can't remember anyone saying, oh, the trailer doesn't look good.
Totally agree with you. Like Christy said, she was going so often that everybody got to know who she was just so she could see the trailer. And you're all right. When there's nothing else to see except that, this is the era before the internet really became a thing. That's all you could do. You could just sit there and analyze every little bit. And of course, you didn't know anything. Okay, you get the kid. You go, okay, this is clearly Anakin Skywalker. He gets addressed accordingly. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Oh, my God, he's a young Obi-Wan. It's like, oh, my God, that is just amazing. And you see Darth Maul. You don't know who he is, Jar Jar Binks. At that point, nobody knew who he was. So it was almost like if you could just stop there and like freeze time or, pass away 2 days later, you'd be going, I'm going to die with a smile on my face because to me, it is pure perfection. And it was just absolutely magnificent. And the fan reaction at the time was just like unpalatable, really. It was really like after all those decades, 16 years of waiting is like, oh my God, it is Star Wars fans' time again. And it was. So, but yeah, the trailers where it all started from. So, yeah, I'm hearing you, dude.
So 22 years between George Lucas releasing a movie as a director and episode 1 came out. Now, I don't know how many people's hearts and souls were crushed that night and how many people thought it was the most awesome thing they ever had seen. I remember coming out of the midnight session and feeling actually a bit shell-shocked and not even sure if I liked it or not because it was so different from what I expected and so different from what I had seen before. And it's one of those interesting things where I think one of the reasons episode 1 did so well, you had Rick McCallum and George Lucas going, you've got to see it multiple times. Every frame is filled by so many different things. You can't see it all in one screening. And people would go, oh my gosh, there's ETs in the set it. Oh my gosh, there's this here and this there. So it was almost like a Where's Wally book where you'd go back to see the movie because if you're looking something on the left of the screen, you're missing something on the right of the screen. Now, it is an interesting way to make a movie because most cinematographers will focus the screen and the setup of the picture so the audience will be following a narrative. But they actually said, we've loaded every single image with so much CGI, you've got to go and watch it multiple times to even be able to take in what you saw. How did you feel?
It's very funny because my comments and my thoughts and views are actually being documented accordingly. I realized afterwards, even though it took a few screenings and I realized, I did actually like it, but I realized all the things that I loved about Star Wars weren't in it. And of course, they couldn't be in it because they didn't exist yet. Right. And I don't think anybody ever actually thought about that at the time. You go, what do I love about Star Wars? I love Darth Vader. Well, he doesn't exist yet. I love the Imperial Empire. Well, they don't exist yet. I love Star Destroyers. They don't exist yet. All these things. You tick in the boxes and you go, yeah, but that's not there. That's not there. That's not there. And when you take it all back, you go, well, it's the same universe, but I can't relate to any of it. So, and I think, we all know historically now what went wrong. The whole Jar Jar Binks thing sort of killed it a bit, and there was a lot of things that just sort of didn't work with the story and whatever else. And we know all that. But I do realize that afterwards, when I walked out, I go, yeah, it sort of just didn't work with me. But some people loved it. I know for a fact there are some people who were too young for when the original movies came out. For them, they actually really did love it because it was their first time they got to see a new movie in the cinemas. Young kids, of course, really dial into the whole Jar Jar Binks thing, which is fair enough. And even today, 20 years later, they're now still big fans of the prequel trilogy. The problem was that 10 years after the film came out in 2009, at Skyforce, we had a Phantom Menace 10th anniversary celebration, and no one wanted to talk about it. No one wanted to discuss it. Nobody wanted to even mention it, acknowledge it. There was no merchandise for it. There was no celebratory pins, posters. It was like everybody just wanted to forget it. Yet 10 years later after that, in 2019, Celebration actually had a Phantom Menace 20th anniversary panel, and it was hugely attended. Everybody loved it. So it took 20 years for people to sort of grow up and realize, oh, yes, they actually did like it. That it's funny the legacy the thing is left. So, but yeah, at the time, I realized, okay, this isn't kind of working the way we want it to. Fans sometimes will force themselves to like something. They go, I have to like it because I've waited for this for so long. But sometimes they're just deluding themselves to a large degree. So, and I think that's what happened.
Well, the interesting thing is I was working with a youth group at the time, and we took all the kids to see the special editions, so Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi. and they all loved them. They thought they were fantastic. And then 2 years later, we took the same kids to see Episode 1, and they were like, "We like Star Wars, Empire and Jedi, but that was 10 times better." So at the time, it did really work with kids. They did like Jar Jar. They thought Darth Maul was the most awesome. They told me he was better than Darth Vader. Why did he have to get chopped in half, kind of thing? So it did work for a younger audience, but maybe not for some of the fans that had built up 10 years of expectation.
And that was the problem. It was the expectation. And I mean, I thought straight away at the very start of the film, I thought, well, in the original beginning of A New Hope, there's a huge, big explain at the Star Destroyer coming in, the big fight with the stormtroopers. You need the equivalent of that. This is how it's kicking off, right? That's the reason why A New Hope works so well. First 10 minutes is the best thing ever. It's like, awesome. Phantom Menace. All right, I'm ready to go. Let's blow my mind. And of course, it was the exact opposite. It was really, really quiet. And I was like, well, I'm lost already. So, yeah, that wasn't a good sign. There's a whole, hang on, give me a second here. You are right, Chrissy. Yeah, the irony of Thank the Maker. Yeah, because there was actually Anakin and Vader who made 3PO. Yeah, which is kind of amusing. Gavin was happy because he got to see shitloads of the Jedi. And I guess there were definitely some areas of the film you go, oh, we finally get to see all this stuff that we've only just heard about. And, yes, exactly right. So, but yeah, it's an interesting sort of part of history. Now, I'm going to just bring this up now. We've referenced it a few times, the Phantom Menace. Now, some people will know what this is, some people won't know, and you can see it on YouTube. But there was a documentary made about Star Walking and our group around 1998, 1999, when it was leading up to the premiere of the film, right? So it's actually available on YouTube. It's actually called the Phantom Menace. Okay, you got to sign into YouTube. I don't know why it says adults only, because there's nothing really bad in there. So I'm not too sure what the deal is with that. But it is actually on YouTube. You can look it up. It goes for an hour and 20 minutes. And it documents our time in the club when all this was occurring. And it actually includes footage from the premiere screening, right? Of what actually happened that night in 1999 when the film was coming out. And it was our screening, the screening that we organized. And you get to see it all, relive it all. The good parts and the bad parts, not the movie, but the reactions, as you said. So they filmed everybody before we went to see the film, filmed everybody as they came out of the cinema. And it's just a massive contrast in opinions before and after. It's just amazing. And the flow-on effects from that. So, yeah, you can, if you want to look it up and watch it. It's a fascinating part of history of Star Wars fandom in this country in the late 90s. And, yeah, and yes, I do make an appearance in it. So, there you go.
It's a pity that you didn't copyright the name, because you know that's been used all over the place now, hasn't it?
It's not my thing. I wasn't involved with it, dude. It was the guys made it. It was an external company who did it, and it's got nothing to do with us. We were just the subject matter. So, I mean, I thought the name Fandom was kind of weird, but anyway. Yeah. So yes.
Now you'd put the Disney D in the logo, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Christy found a copy, and she wants to offload it now. 50 cents. There you go. So yes, there were DVD versions available and all the rest of it. So. It's an interesting one from Russell. I thought it was okay when I first saw it, and I'm surprised at all the hostility at fan parties. But yeah, yeah, exactly right. There was a lot of hostility. It did divide the fan community. So, as someone once said, it was actually Chris Brennan. It's actually mentioned in the documentary. It was a good leading to episode 2, and that itself is a whole nother story. So, and there's actually a shot here from the Phantom Menace of the crowd in the cinema, and yeah, there's a whole story to be told about that. So. You know, history is a wonderful thing, but indeed. But from the collectibles point of view, yes, the people who spent all that money, including yourself, probably thought afterwards, well, what wasn't the smartest thing in the world? And all the people who merchandise, all the people who spent money buying licenses, producing all these products, must be sitting there crying their eyes out afterwards. So there you go. What do you reckon?
That's sort of an oral history of how we remember the Phantom Menace, the lead up and the release, and that leads into next week's episode where we will be looking at the Phantom Menace merchandise. So hope you've enjoyed tonight's discussion. Sorry we ran over time. Any last words, Dags?
No, it's sorry, I did that for Gavin because Gavin loves my cat. I mean, we all know now that, yeah, right, the Phantom Menace wasn't a good movie, and it's like probably the worst of the entire lot, really. But I can still happily remember a time before it came out and what everybody was like and what it was, how everybody loved it and enjoyed it. And it's a shame you can't like capture that time in a bottle. But it was an awesome time to be a Star Wars fan back then. But unfortunately, you're right. They did produce a lot of merchandise. A lot of it is all completely worthless. Even today, you've still got Phantom Menace stuff in your shop that is still probably cost less than what it was selling for back in 1999. But it's an interesting part of history. You can learn from it, and that's the most important thing. So, yeah, that's it, I think. So there you go, guys. Any final words before we sign off, Mr. Aaron?
No, I think we've covered everything we wanted to tonight. So thanks for being with us and staying overtime.
Yep, no worries. And normally I say keep your collectibles minty box with the Phantom Menace stuff. I just open the card and chuck them away. They're worthless anyway. So.
Not what I was going to say.
Yeah. All right. Catch you guys. Leave you to it.
See you. Have a good night.
Bye.